I removed my eyes, and my roommate who stole them began to rot. The day before the university was set to reopen, in a past life, my roommate Mona was a glutton who ate and drank excessively every day, yet never seemed to use the bathroom. But someone who used the bathroom daily like me started suffering from constipation. In the end, I reeked of a strong, foul odor due to fermentation in my stomach, and I was shunned wherever I went. When my parents caught a whiff of my overpowering stench, they covered their noses and locked me in the basement. "You monster, don't embarrass us outside." My girlfriend sent a breakup text. "You smell disgusting." The school expelled me for affecting its appearance. I realized it had something to do with Mona, so I confronted her. "You never used to go to the bathroom, but now you're running there 10 times a day." In the midst of the argument, she pushed me into the swimming pool and I drowned in the smell of chlorine. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of my school entrance physical. I decided to remove that eye. The surgery took place in Malcolm's underground clinic, a place run by my father's comrade. This retired military doctor owed my father his life, and when I made this utterly bizarre request, he stared at me for a full 3 minutes. "Are you sure?" Malcolm's fingers trembled. "This isn't a joke. It will severely affect your normal physiological functions." "I'm sure," I said, my voice so calm it surprised even myself. "Uncle Malcolm, I have my reasons for doing this." Finally, Malcolm sighed, took out the anesthetics and surgical instruments. 2 hours later, the sockets of my eyes were sealed with fine stitches. Malcolm gave me some anti-inflammatory drugs and care instructions. His expression complicated. "Your father would kill me if he knew." "He won't know." I put on my pants, the stitches aching slightly, but the pain gave me a sense of reassurance. In my previous life, it was because I didn't do this that the monster Mona stole my excretory function. On the first day of college, when I dragged my suitcase into the dorm, Mona was already making her bed. "Hi, you're Ethan, right?" "I'm Mona." She turned around, her smile radiant. She was ordinary looking, slightly overweight, but her eyes were unusually bright, too bright, like those of a hungry beast. In my previous life, I was deceived by that smile. "Hello," I replied briefly and chose the bed farthest from her. Mona seemed a bit surprised by my coldness, but quickly regained her enthusiasm. "I heard the cafeteria opened a new buffet area. Let's go try it out tonight." "I have a sensitive stomach and can't eat too much," I said while making the bed, "and I just had a minor surgery, so I need to stick to a light diet." "Surgery?" she asked curiously, leaning in. I looked her straight in the eye. "It was just a minor issue with my anus, but it's taken care of now." Mona's expression stiffened for a moment, then she forced a smile. "You should take good care of yourself." At that moment, I was certain she had sensed something. The first week of school was the physical examination. I stood on the scale, and the nurse recorded the data. Height 178 centimeters, weight 65 kilograms, normal. When it was Mona's turn, she deliberately ate very little, yet she still weighed 80 kilograms. "You should lose weight," said Counselor Zhang, glancing at the data. Her voice was soft but loud enough for those around to hear. "A girl can't be this fat." A few classmates snickered. Mona's face turned bright red as she tightly clutched her health check form, her knuckles turning white. In my previous life, I was the one being laughed at in such situations. Back then, I had already started suffering from constipation. My weight was mysteriously increasing, and I exuded an unmistakable odor. "All right, the next item is the routine consultation," urged Teacher Zhang. "Hurry up." In the consultation room, the school doctor routinely inquired about everyone's health. "Any chronic illnesses? How's your digestive system? Are bowel movements normal?" When it was Mona's turn, she hesitated for a moment. "Everything's normal." "How many bowel movements do you have a day?" the school nurse asked without looking up. "Once or twice, I guess." Mona's voice sounded unsure. I stood at the back of the line, watching her back. In my previous life, when the school nurse asked me the same question, I had to admit that I hadn't had a bowel movement in a month. Mona was standing right behind me then, with a faint, almost imperceptible smile on her lips. Now, my body was functioning normally. The sutured wound had healed, and I was sustaining myself with the special nutrient solution provided by Malcolm. Although I couldn't defecate, at least Mona couldn't steal that function from me. And Mona, she was starting to change. In the second week of school, Mona's appetite noticeably increased. She would get double portions at every meal and often snacked in the dorm. "Aren't you full, Toby?" my roommate couldn't help but ask. "I saw you eat 3 bowls of rice for dinner." Mona, her mouth stuffed with food, mumbled, "I'm still growing, you know," but her complexion was getting worse, and she had dark circles under her eyes. What was even stranger was that her food wrappers never appeared in the dorm trash. It was as if she was eating the packaging too. One late night, I was woken by a strange sound. By the moonlight, I saw Mona crouched by the trash can, stuffing something into her mouth. Upon closer inspection, it was the banana peel and eggshells she had thrown away earlier that day. I held my breath and pretended to be asleep. The next morning, Mona's eyes were bloodshot, and she looked puffy all over. "Are you okay?" I asked, pretending to be concerned. She forced a smile. "I might be a bit swollen, but I'm fine." But I noticed her fingers were also swelling, and the ring had sunk deep into the flesh. The first conflict occurred on Friday of the 3rd week. That afternoon, the class organized a basketball game. After playing, I returned to the dorm to shower and, upon entering the bathroom, caught a faint whiff of decay. The smell was coming from Mona's locker. "What's that smell, Toby? Did something go bad?" Mona rushed anxiously to the cabinet. "It's nothing, probably just an apple core I forgot to throw away." She quickly opened the cabinet, grabbed a plastic bag, and rushed out, but the smell had already spread throughout the dorm, carrying an ominous sweetness, like the smell of meat beginning to rot. Toby frowned. "Mona's been so strange lately. She eats so much, yet I've never seen her go to the bathroom." Another roommate, Felix, chimed in, "And have you noticed? She's getting fatter and having a hard time walking." I silently dried my hair, knowing that things were unfolding as they had in my previous life. Only this time, I wasn't the one bearing the brunt. Counselor Teacher Zhang had a talk with Mona. "Some students have reported that you have an odor." Teacher Zhang got straight to the point, his brow furrowed. "And your attendance record isn't great either. You've been frequently late recently." Mona stood in the center of the office, nervously twisting the hem of her shirt. "I'm sorry, Teacher Zhang, I haven't been feeling well lately." "Go see a doctor then." Teacher Zhang's tone was devoid of sympathy. "University isn't a nursing home. Your condition is affecting the class's image." Mona kept her head down, but I could see her shoulders trembling slightly. In my previous life, I had stood in this same spot, hearing almost the same scolding. Back then, Teacher Zhang had said, "Ethan, your smell is affecting the other students. Either fix the problem or consider taking a leave of absence." Now, it was Mona's turn. "I'll be careful," Mona whispered. "Also," Teacher Zhang added, "your parents need to come to school next week. We need to discuss your situation." Mona jerked her head up, a flicker of panic in her eyes. Mona's parents arrived at the school a week later. They appeared to be ordinary working-class people, dressed in slightly outdated clothes, their faces showing signs of the long journey. In the office, Teacher Zhang got straight to the point. "Mona has been showing unusual behavior lately. Her appetite is unusually strong, and her personal hygiene is concerning." Teacher Zhang said carefully but clearly. "We recommend taking her to the hospital for a comprehensive checkup." Mona's mother turned pale. Mona has always been in poor health. "But how could this?" "I'm fine," Mona suddenly interrupted her mother. "I'm just stressed, so I eat to relieve it." "But you've gained 20 pounds, Mona's father said sternly. "It's only been a month since school started." The meeting ended in discord. Mona's parents decided to take her to the city hospital for a checkup, but Mona flatly refused. "I'm not sick," she screamed in the hallway. "Why doesn't anyone believe me?" Passing students glanced at her with disdain. Some whispered to each other, "I heard she smells really bad. She just looks off. Our dorm doesn't welcome her." Every word was like a knife, and I knew this was just the beginning. Mona began to be isolated. In class, the seats around her were always empty. In the cafeteria, no one wanted to sit with her. In the dorm, Toby and Felix avoided talking to her and even avoided eye contact. Her physical changes were becoming more and more noticeable. Her once slightly plump figure had now become uncomfortably bloated, and she was out of breath just walking. Her skin had an unhealthy grayish pallor, and the dark circles under her eyes were so deep it looked like she had been punched. What was worse, the foul smell was growing stronger, and no amount of perfume could mask it. One evening, Mona finally broke down. "Why?" she shouted into the empty dorm. "Why are all of you avoiding me? What did I do wrong?" Toby and Felix had already found excuses to leave. I was the only one left in the dorm, quietly reading a book. Mona turned to me, tears in her eyes. Ethan, tell me, am I really that unbearable? I put down the book and looked at her calmly. Have you ever thought that this might be related to your never having a bowel movement? Her expression froze instantly. What are you talking about? Her voice trembled. I'm saying, I slowly stood up and walked over to her. You eat so much, yet you never go to the bathroom. Where does all that food go, Mona? Her face turned pale, and she took a step back. I don't know what you're talking about. You know, I whispered, just like you knew in your past life where my excretory functions went. Mona's eyes widened, and her lips trembled, unable to form words. In that moment, I was certain she had memories of her past life. The next day, Mona didn't show up for class. Teacher Zhang sent me to check on her in the dorm. As I pushed the door open, a strong stench of decay hit me, almost making me choke. Mona was lying in bed, her head covered by the blanket. Mona, I called out. No response. I approached and gently lifted the blanket. The sight before me took my breath away. Mona's face was so swollen it was almost unrecognizable, with a dark purple hue and some areas already beginning to fester. Her eyes were half open, her gaze vacant. Hospital, she croaked. Take me to the hospital. I immediately called the emergency number. The diagnosis from the city hospital was perplexing. The patient's digestive system has completely shut down, the attending doctor told Mona's parents and the school representatives who had rushed over. Yet she continues to consume large amounts of food. These foods accumulate and ferment in her body, leading to severe sepsis and organ failure. How could this happen? Mona's mother sobbed. The doctor shook his head. It doesn't make medical sense. It's like her body has lost its excretory function, but her appetite has become abnormally strong. I stood outside the ward, looking through the glass at Mona on the bed. Her body had already started to visibly decay, and the nurses had to change her sheets frequently because her skin oozed a foul-smelling liquid. In a past life, I too had lain on such a bed, listening to the doctors tell my parents the same thing. Back then, my parents chose to lock me in the basement, calling me a monster. Mona's parents didn't abandon her, but the fear was already evident in their eyes. An emergency meeting was held at the school. The vice principal said gravely, Mona's situation has seriously disrupted the normal order of the school. Her ward smells too strongly, and other patients keep filing complaints. Moreover, if this gets out, it would be a huge blow to the school's reputation. Teacher Zhang suggested, could we let her take a leave of absence to receive treatment at home? The director of student affairs sighed. The problem is, her parents say they can't afford long-term medical expenses, and, to be honest, her condition, no hospital is willing to take her in for long. The conference room fell silent. Finally, the vice principal made a decision. Let her stay in the school's isolation ward for a while. And at the same time, contact charitable organizations and social assistance. If there's no improvement, we may need to consider other options. I knew what other options meant. Just like in my previous life when I was sent home, abandoned by society, isolated by my family, waiting for death and decay, Mona was transferred to the school's abandoned medical building, which had been temporarily converted into an isolation ward. Her parents came to see her once a day, but their visits grew shorter and shorter. I visited her once. In the isolation ward, Mona lay in bed, connected to various monitoring devices. Her body was severely deformed, and some parts of her skin had completely rotted away, exposing the underlying tissue. Ethan, she recognized me, her voice barely a whisper. I stood at the door, not entering. Did you do it, didn't you? Her eyes fixed on me, devoid of anger, only deep confusion. Why did I turn out this way? I didn't answer her question but instead asked, in a past life, why did you steal my excretory function? Why did you push me into the septic tank? Mona's pupils contracted sharply. You remember too, she said with difficulty. I remember everything. My voice was calm. I remember how I slowly rotted in the stench, how I was locked away by my parents, how I was abandoned by everyone. I remember the foul smell of the septic tank and the despair of suffocation. Mona's lips trembled. I didn't mean to. That ability, I can't control it. It automatically seeks out the most suitable host. So you chose me. I interrupted her. Because I can go 10 times in one sitting, with powerful digestive functions. making me the perfect target. She fell silent, which was as good as an admission. Now you've experienced it, I said. The feeling of being betrayed by your own body, the agony of being filled with food yet unable to expel it, the fear of slowly rotting away. Mona closed her eyes, a murky tear slipping down the corner of her eye. I'm sorry, she whispered. It's too late. I turned and walked away. Enjoy the rest of your time. Mona's condition continues to deteriorate. Her parents had a heated argument with the school administration during their last visit. We can't take her home. Mona's father exclaimed passionately, we have a younger son, and we can't let the neighbors know we have such a monster. Mona's mother cried so hard she almost fainted. But she's our daughter. She's no longer our daughter. Mona's father roared. Look at her now. Is that even human? That's just a rotting piece of flesh. These words seeped through the crack under the door into the ward, and Mona, lying in bed, must have heard them. In the end, Mona's parents signed the agreement, consenting to transfer Mona to a specialized care facility, which was, in reality, a remote psychiatric hospital that took in various special cases. Before leaving, Mona's mother looked at her daughter one last time through the glass, then walked away without looking back. I knew Mona's fate was sealed. The night before Mona was to be moved, I returned to the isolation ward. She could barely speak, communicating only through her eyes. I pulled up a chair and sat close to the bed. I've looked into it, I said calmly. Your ability, it's not supernatural, but a rare genetic mutation that allows the transfer of specific physiological functions, but each transfer comes at a cost. The host gradually loses other physiological functions as compensation. Mona's eyes widened slightly. You never used to poop, not because you didn't need to, but because you transferred your excretory functions to others. I continued, but when you stole mine, your body was already carrying too much strain. Now, it's collapsing. I stood up and walked to the window. Tomorrow you'll be sent away. No one there will truly treat you. You'll slowly rot and die, just like I did in my previous life. Mona let out a faint sound, as if pleading, I won't save you. I turned to face her. Just as you didn't save me in a past life, this is the fate you deserve. I left the ward without looking back. The day after Mona was taken away, changes began to manifest in my body. Intense pain radiated from the stitched anus, forcing me to seek out Malcolm again. The stitches need to come out, Malcolm said gravely after examining me. Otherwise, you could develop sepsis. Your body needs to be able to excrete normally, Ethan. But, I hesitated. I know you have your reasons, Malcolm interrupted, but nothing is worth risking your life over. The surgery went smoothly. After the stitches were removed, my body gradually regained its normal excretory function. Strangely, with Mona's departure, my gastrointestinal issues disappeared, and my bowel movements returned to normal. Malcolm suggested it might be a physiological issue caused by psychological factors, but I knew the truth. Mona's abilities had faded as she weakened, and the stolen functions had automatically returned to their original owner. A month later, the school returned to its usual calm. Mona's name was rarely mentioned, as if she had never existed. Occasionally, new students would ask why the isolation ward was locked, and the older students would mumble vaguely before quickly changing the subject. I went about my normal routine of attending classes, eating, and socializing. No one knew about my past secrets. No one knew I had ever had my anus sutured, and even fewer knew how I had died in my previous life. Sometimes late at night, I would think of Mona's final appearance, her decaying body, and her desperate eyes. I would ask myself if my revenge had been too cruel, but every time I think that, I remember the stench of the septic tank, the agony of suffocation, and the loneliness of being abandoned by everyone in my past life. Then I tell myself, she deserves it. At the end of the semester, I received a letter from a distant mental hospital. The envelope had no return address, only my name and school address. The letter was short, just one line, I'm dead. Are you satisfied now? There was no signature, but I knew who it was from. I burned the letter, watching the flames consume the paper and turn it to ashes. In the flames, I thought I saw Mona's final face, her decaying body, and the despair in her eyes. Then I saw my past self, struggling in the cesspool, slowly sinking into darkness. The two scenes overlapped, making it impossible to tell who was the victim and who was the perpetrator. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. When I opened my eyes again, the flames had died down. leaving only a small pile of ashes. I swept the ashes into the trash, as if erasing a painful memory. Outside the window, the sun was bright, and university life went on, and I, too, must continue with my life, carrying this secret, this memory, and all the pain and hatred of past and present lives. Survive. A new semester has begun, and there have been adjustments to the dormitory assignments. I moved into a new room with 2 new roommates. They are cheerful and normal. Complaining about the food in the cafeteria and being rushed by others for spending too long in the bathroom, life seems to be back on track, but sometimes late at night, when I'm alone, I subconsciously touch the scar from the stitches near my anus. Though the stitches are gone, a faint mark remains. That was the testament to this supernatural war, the evidence of the bloody deal between me and Mona. No one knows that such a bizarre struggle over bodily functions once took place in this ordinary university. No one knows that a girl died in her own decay after stealing someone else's excretory function. No one knows that I once sewed up my own anus with needle and thread just to protect myself from a supernatural raid. These secrets will fade with time. Buried deep within the recesses of memory, much like Mona was buried in an unmarked grave, and I, with these secrets, will continue to move forward, because life must go on, even if it is built on such absurd and cruel foundations. This is my story, a tale of anus, sutures, theft, and revenge, a story no one would believe, yet it really happened. Story 2, last time, when the apocalypse came, my brother awakened a space power. My parents made me sell everything to stockpile for him. After the apocalypse fully broke out, because I ate one more biscuit, they pushed me into the zombie crowd, letting me be bitten and killed by zombies. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself reincarnated 1 week before my brother awakened his spatial abilities. I reincarnated 1 week before the apocalypse. The pain of zombies' sharp teeth piercing my skin and tearing my flesh is still vivid in my memory. I was breathing heavily, just about to get out of bed, when my phone rang. It was my mother calling. As soon as I answered, I heard my mother's scolding voice on the phone. It's been 2 days. Why haven't you transferred the 300,000 yet for your brother's business? The debt collecting conversation started from my 2nd year of high school and has been going on non-stop. My younger brother is sick. My younger brother needs to pay tuition. My younger brother wants the latest model of basketball shoes, just because I'm a girl. In my past life, I always fulfilled their requests, but it ended in a tragic fate. This time, I want to see how long they can survive in this world where they are as greedy as wolves without my help. Suppressing my resentment, I spoke up. Mom, the company is having financial issues. My bonus will be delayed. Don't worry, I'll transfer the money to you as soon as it arrives. My mom scolded me for half an hour. After hanging up the phone, I immediately applied for a week of annual leave and quickly mortgaged my house. 800,000 will be transferred in half an hour. I quickly rented an old villa located in a very remote area on the outskirts of the city, isolated, with a vast area. It is the best choice for a post-apocalyptic safe house. After walking around the villa for a while and coming up with a rough idea, the renovation team I had booked arrived. I told the renovation boss that I was setting up a live streaming incubation base, and we agreed on the construction requirements and price. And the work started immediately. As the day was getting dark, I had a simple meal at a street stall, the first barbecue after my rebirth. I cherished it very much. By the end of the meal, I couldn't control my tears. Great, I'm still alive. After the meal, I packed the valuable items at home and took them to the park with the highest foot traffic nearby to sell them at a low price. The effect is good, and it was almost sold out by the end of the night. Income plus 16,000, after deducting the 300,000 withdrawn today for renovation. The annual rent of the villa is 10,000, plus the previous savings. There is currently 680,000 left. When I got home, it was already 11 o'clock at night. I was already exhausted, but I was still frantically placing orders on my phone. With a limited budget, some things are more cost-effective to buy online. It happened to be the Spring Festival, and the online promotions were quite generous, various toiletries and skincare products. I selected 20 sets each with a long shelf life. Winter clothing and warmth products should not be missing. I ordered 20 sets of each, and 20 boxes of items like warm pads, Medicines are too noticeable to buy in physical stores, so I just bought them online. Various cold medicines, fever-reducing medicines, anti-inflammatory medicines, antidiarrheal medicines, Yunnan Baiyao, painkillers, calcium tablets, hemostatic tablets, fever patches, iodine tincture, cotton balls, gauze. Comprehensive B vitamin complex, vitamin C with the latest expiration date, 50 boxes each, 200 boxes of Band-Aids, 20 thermometers, 30 bottles of cooling oil, 200 bottles of hibiscus oil, 100 boxes of frostbite ointment, 30 bags of hemostatic powder. Some antibacterial drugs also need to be bought. Although I only lived for a week in the past life, I still heard on TV that some people lost their lives just from bacterial infections. In the post-apocalyptic world, food is hard to come by. And medicine is even harder. 80 boxes of antibacterial ointment. I had 10 bottles of alcohol left from the pandemic, and I bought another 150 bottles. Get 15 first aid boxes, 150 bottles of antibiotics. The order has been submitted and paid. It's already midnight. To prevent others from suspecting, I specifically bought with 5 accounts. I've exhausted all the credit available through Alipay's Huabei, Baizhang, and monthly payment. I filled in different addresses. I will drive myself to pick them up one by one later, even if I have a second chance at life. I don't know how long the apocalypse will last, so it's better to prepare more, just in case. After a day of, I'm exhausted, but I can't sleep, afraid that closing my eyes would reveal that this so-called rebirth is just a fantasy before death. In my past 30 years of a messy life, I've never encountered such a good thing. I opened the internet to search for any clues about the end of the world. But I found that people had not yet realized the apocalypse had arrived. It even targeted several videos online about people with vacant eyes, ashen faces, and strange behavior attacking in parks and train stations, claiming they were maliciously staged to create panic. In my previous life, I also looked down on them. Now, I only feel pitiful. Everything was traceable, but people ignored it with their arrogance. I left a comment under online posts related to the apocalypse, reminding people that it's never wrong to stock up on supplies. Limited in ability, I can only do my best to remind them. When I opened my eyes again, it was already 8 o'clock in the morning. Seeing that the supplies I ordered had already started to be shipped, I felt much better and got up to wash myself. There were still some vegetables in the fridge. I had a simple bowl of noodles and then drove straight to my hometown. My mom called me yesterday, saying they were going to my uncle's house for a feast, and she subtly reminded me not to go back and embarrass them. Arriving at my hometown, my parents and my younger brother had just left. I took out the spare key and opened the front door. After searching, I finally found my parents' and my brother's ID cards, as well as the house ownership certificate, in a metal box under the TV cabinet. I carefully put them away. Then took out the pinhole camera I bought on the way and installed it in a very hidden corner of the house. Soon, the whole house was visible. As I passed through the narrow, dusty storage room filled with items, my fists clenched. In the previous life, when the end of the world came, they treated me like a stray dog and locked me inside, giving me only some almost spoiled leftovers every day. When I was about to faint from hunger, I struggled to get up and grabbed the biscuit from my brother's hand. Before I could even swallow the biscuit, my father kicked me in the head. Crash! My head hit the coffee table, blood spread from my mouth and nose, and my vision became blurred. How dare you take your brother's things? You've gone too far. One kick after another, hard on my body. Even though I had curled up into a ball and said sorry countless times, my father's feet didn't stop. It wasn't until my father twisted his waist, groaning in pain, that he stopped. Slap! A slap hit my face. I looked up in confusion, meeting my mother's red eyes. My mother pointed at me and scolded, "Useless thing, you just know how to make your father angry. If I had known you were such a useless traitor, I should have killed you when you were born." Mom, I didn't. I tried to explain with mumbled words, but my mother didn't listen, pulling my hair and dragging me from the living room to the entrance. The village was already full of zombies wandering around, and my blood smell made 2 zombies that happened to pass by stop and look around at the door. I realized my mother's intention and knelt down, crying and begging for mercy. "Mom, I'm sorry, I won't steal my brother's food anymore. If you push me out now, I'll die." My mother grunted and spat in response. I turned back and bowed to my father, begging for mercy. My father laughed. A burden, what's the use of keeping her? My brother pinched his nose and urged, okay, just get her out quickly, she's spilled blood all over the house, it's disgusting. My parents pushed me out of the door and locked it behind them. The zombies heard the noise and moved over mechanically. I beat the door desperately, begging for mercy, but they seemed not to hear. Seeing the zombies getting closer, I had no choice but to endure the pain and struggle to get up from the ground, gritting my teeth and running desperately. I had been hungry for 7 days, and had just been beaten by my parents. I was no match for those zombies. Soon, I was surrounded so tightly that there was no way to escape. Tears of despair were still in my eyes, but my arm was already bitten off by the zombies. Broken bone fragments mixed with blood splattered on the white snow, glaring and eye-catching. Other zombies became extremely excited upon smelling the blood, all opening their fangs. Then came the right arm, shoulder, both legs, and the stomach. It really hurts. Now that I have been reborn, I will make them all pay for their crimes. I ran through all the loan centers with their documents and also took out loans online, squeezing every bit of value from them. Seeing 3 million added to my balance, I felt much more confident. I drove straight to the largest wholesale market nearby. I bought 50 boxes of disposable tableware, garbage bags, and slippers, pretending to open a homestay if there is a water shortage in the future. Disposable items will reduce a lot of unnecessary trouble, of course. Wet wipes are also essential, so I took 5 boxes. Then there are hygiene products, 50 boxes of sanitary napkins, 20 boxes of incontinence pads, 10 boxes of disposable underwear and innerwear, 200 towels, 10 sets of winter and summer bedding each, 20 boxes of disposable face wipes, 20 cases each of laundry powder, laundry liquid, and other cleaning products, 500 rolls of toilet paper, 100 cases of paper towels, 5 cases of air purifiers, and 20 cases of disinfectant hand sanitizers. 2. I drove and moved 5 trips before finishing this shopping, because I said the villa would be transformed into a network celebrity incubation base. The construction workers didn't pay much attention when they saw me bringing back so much stuff. Some workers were kind enough to help me carry the things. Finally, after everything was done, my phone rang. It was my mom again. Dove, you little brat. Did you sneak back home and take things when we weren't looking? She found out quickly. Mom, I didn't mean to hide it from you. My colleague is leaving for abroad in 2 days, and the house needs to be sold quickly. I went back and took your documents and household registration book to help my younger brother buy the house, so he can live in a bigger house. Mom didn't believe and immediately asked more questions. Is there such a good thing? You won't trick me, will you, Mom? When have I ever tricked you? The house is a 230 square meter split level, a high-end community, with direct elevator access and a private concierge. It wasn't sold for 3 million before, but now it's only 2 million. The most important thing is that it's a school district house. When my younger brother has children, your big grandson can go to school by just stepping out of the building, directly connecting kindergarten, primary school, and middle school. The schools there only enroll children living in the neighborhood, and ordinary people can't even get in even if they pay $1 million. To help my brother buy this house, I mortgaged my own house and borrowed some money from my boss and colleagues, but I still fell short by $30,000. Mom was tempted. I should make it clear in advance. I don't have that much money. This is all your own decision, and it has nothing to do with us. You find someone else to borrow from. Mom immediately distanced herself to avoid being chased for debt. Don't worry, Mom, it's okay if I work a little harder. As long as the parents and my brother can live in a big house, everything is worth it. I'll see if there's anyone else I can borrow from. I'll go borrow. Mom suddenly smiled and praised me for finally being useful. After hanging up the phone, I turned on the connected surveillance camera. As expected, Mom was sharing this with her brother and his husband. After hearing it, Dad immediately patted his brother's shoulder and laughed happily. No wonder I'm the one with good luck. His brother proudly raised his head, saying, that's for sure, I'm not an ordinary person. Then they started discussing how to allocate the house based on the floor plan I sent to Mom, and what overall style to decorate it in. They even made a big table of dishes to celebrate. All of them were his brother's favorite. I was driving while watching their celebration, secretly laughing. Laugh now. Because there will be plenty of time to cry later, I didn't want to watch them anymore, so I turned off the monitor and moved on to the next batch of material purchases. Today's purchase is non-perishable food, 1,000 caddies of rice, 500 caddies of wheat flour, 4 cases of noodles, 100 caddies of vermicelli, 2 cases each of various brands of favorite flavor instant noodles, totaling 50 cases. Although in my previous life, I died because of a biscuit, I still bought 50 cases of biscuits and 20 cases of compressed biscuits as backup. After all, the fault has never been with the food, but with people. Since I like spicy food, I bought 20 cases each of self-heating hot pot type food with self-heating packs, 10 cases each of convenience foods like Laoshifeng noodles and hot dry noodles. To prevent being unable to cook during a power outage, I also bought an extra 100 cases of self-heating packs, 50 cases of ham sausages and packaged deli meats, chicken feet, etc., 50 cans each of pork, beef, mutton, and fish canned food, another 100 caddies of dried beef and pork slices, 200 cases of 5L bucket water, 200 packs of mineral water, 10 cases each of juice, drinks, and milk, because milk has a short shelf life. I also bought 20 caddies of milk powder and 30 cases of infant formula and 3 cases of protein powder to supplement the protein needed by my body. After another round of trouble, it was already dark. I ate a bowl of beef noodles and then covered myself with the blanket and went to sleep. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, there were only my parents and my younger brother laughing at me as I was bitten by zombies, laughing at me for being useless, scolding me for getting what I deserved. I cried and said no, but their smiles gradually twisted and distorted. Woken up in my sleep, it was already daytime. I didn't get up immediately, but picked up my phone and opened the surveillance camera. Unlike the evil parents in my dream, they were still immersed in the joy of buying a house. Dad was sitting on the sofa watching TV, and Mom was busy in the kitchen with a spatula. The door to my brother's room was closed, so he was probably still asleep. After all, he only spends his days idly playing games at home. Dad saw a certain scene on the TV and quickly called Mom. "Honey, isn't the layout just like our son's house?" Mom came over. "It is. Once the house is ready, we will definitely decorate it well, and it will surely be better than this one." Then they continued to enthusiastically discuss the decoration, even planning the room for their beloved grandson. It even carefully planned a beautiful future of taking care of grandchildren. At this moment, I actually hope the end of the world comes quickly. Let's see, when they call their beloved son the end of the world comes, will he also be so good to his parents? The result of the discussion was no surprise, as always, making me pay for the renovation. The reason is that if they don't help me spend money, my money will be spent by others. Absurd. I washed my face and had breakfast without any emotion, and continued to drive to do shopping. This time, I was shopping for electronic products. Now that the overall framework of the renovation is ready, I need to arrange for the power grid, solar energy, monitoring, and security equipment. After a tour of the technology city, I spent $50,000 directly. It hurts, but thinking that these are all my protective charms, I suddenly feel that everything is worth it. An hour later, the electronic equipment installer and I arrived at the villa, and after a brief discussion, we started the installation. In addition to the basic renovation of the house, I also had the construction team build a 4-meter-high fence with barbed wire and an electric fence around it. The electricians installed the surveillance cameras I bought in various corners of the villa, and also powered the electric fence. Once someone touches it, they will be subjected to a strong electric shock. The construction team asked me why I wanted to install this, and I smiled and explained that the villa is located in a remote area and is near a mountain, so I was worried that if a wild boar ran down and injured someone. After hearing what I said, they dispelled their suspicions. The installation was completed, and it was already midnight. After sending off the installation workers, I was very tired, so I just went to sleep in the second-floor bedroom of the villa. I was woken up by the noise from the renovation. I chatted with them for a while and then left again. This time I mainly purchased clothes. The clothes came in 30 sets of each style for all seasons according to my size. Underwear, innerwear, and socks each came in 3 boxes. Since I bought a lot, the boss gave me the wholesale price, which cost only a quarter of the regular price. Upon hearing that I wanted to open a clothing store, The boss also gave me some clearance end-of-season goods to use for promotions. I put all of these into the car and took them back to the villa. Then I went to the hardware and electrical materials market. This time the reason was to restock the hardware store. 20 daggers, 20 axes, 20 sets of kitchen cutlery, 50 flashlights, and 20 telescopes, 10 window-breaking pens, 20 gas masks, 10 anti-stab suits, 20 fire blankets, 10 night vision goggles, 10 tents, 10 portable camping pots, 10 compasses, 30 mini flashlights, in case of power failure later. I specially bought 20 manually charged flashlights, 50 small fans, 10 boxes of mosquito coils, 10 boxes of mosquito repellent liquid, 50 sets of mosquito repellent devices, 10 cooling mats, 50 cooling patches, to prevent communication chaos. I also bought 10 radio receivers and a box of spare batteries, of course, in order to grow vegetables on the balcony. I also bought various seeds, soil, fertilizer, pots, and agricultural tools. The store gave me a lot of gifts before I left. Great. Because the packaging was tight, when the workers helped me carry it back to the villa, they just made a few jokes about how heavy it was, which I brushed off. Finally, I put everything in the basement, and the express station sent me a message to pick up the package. The medicine and toiletries I bought have arrived. On the way, I checked the surveillance while driving. 3. Now, in this special situation, there can be no mistakes. The facts proved that my worries were unnecessary. After all, they only think of me when they need money, and otherwise they don't even remember that I am their daughter. There was still some time before the sun set, so I turned around and headed straight to the book market. Cultivating plants, physical fitness, science and technology, culinary cooking. I bought everything that interested me or could be useful, as if it were free. At checkout, there were a full 10 boxes, and the store offered free delivery service. Left the phone number and address. Then took another look around and bought some discounted books. On the way, I passed by an electronics store and bought 50 USB drives, then filled them all with documentaries and TV series for future entertainment and learning. On the way back, I bought some street food I like, and picked up the package from the previous community. The car was filled to the brim again, just back to the villa and unloaded. The books I bought arrived. The workers who were busy joked a bit. Then I and the book delivery driver put them in the study on the second floor. I quickly sorted them out, and the foreman called me down to inspect. The project duration was 3 days as expected. The second floor of the villa was just a simple renovation. The layout remained unchanged. The second floor has 1 master bedroom, 2 guest rooms, a study, a walk-in closet, and a bathroom. The first floor has a kitchen, an indoor garden, a studio, a living room, and a bathroom. All doors and windows were replaced with the latest bulletproof materials, and the glass was also replaced with bulletproof glass. It was coated with a one-way privacy film, so even the most sophisticated detection instruments cannot see inside from the outside. It is equipped with the hardest alloy steel lock, which greatly enhances the security level. In addition, a second basement was dug underground, adding up to 100 square meters. Divided into rooms of more than 10 square meters each, used to store rice, flour, cooking oil, daily necessities, and other supplies. After confirming there were no problems, I settled the remaining payment, said a few polite words, and sent them off. It was already 10 p.m., but I didn't go to bed. Instead, I reheated the braised chicken and rice I had packed on the way back, had a bite, and started organizing things. Now the task is huge, so I need to time. At 1 a.m., I finally couldn't hold on and fell asleep in bed. The next morning, I was woken up by my mother's phone call. As soon as I picked up the phone, my mother scolded me impatiently and asked if I could come to see the house. I gave her a few perfunctory answers and hung up the phone. Looking at the time, it was only 5 o'clock. Since I was already awake, I didn't go back to sleep, but instead got up, washed up, changed clothes, and headed straight to the largest vegetable market nearby. Compared to meat and dry food, I prefer vegetables, but vegetables don't store well, so I had to buy them now. For common seasonings like green onions, ginger, and garlic, I took 5 boxes each. For spices like cumin, black pepper, chili, cinnamon, star anise, and 13 spices, I took 1 box each. For various types of hot pot base and seasoning powder, I took 1 box of each, 50 boxes of refined salt, 20 boxes of white sugar, 4 liquid seasonings like cooking wine, white vinegar, soy sauce, and oyster sauce. I took 2 boxes of each, 4 other less commonly used seasonings. I randomly gathered 3 large boxes, then headed straight to the seafood area, fresh shrimp 50 catties, live carp 30 pieces, crucian carp 50 pieces, and another 10 boxes of frozen fish from the deep sea, shrimp paste 4 boxes, laver 10 boxes, and kelp 50 boxes, as well as 50 boxes of sea grapes, frozen dumplings, buns, steamed buns, and bread, each coming in 5 large boxes. Vegetable area, cabbage, potatoes, radishes, sweet potatoes, and other long-storing vegetables, each coming in 200 catties. Leafy vegetables such as mustard greens and spinach, each stored in 10 boxes. Green beans and long beans, each coming in 100 catties. Mung beans, black beans, and yellow beans, which can sprout, were stocked up, each coming in 200 catties. Chicken, duck, fish, meat, and fresh beef and mutton, each coming in 100 catties, plus some hot pot meatballs and various side dishes. Filling up my new 10 large refrigerators and 10 large ice cabinets completely, of course. Besides fresh meat, I also bought some vacuum-packed roasted chicken, roasted duck, and red sausage. There was a lot of stuff, and I had to go back and forth 3 times to finish. I had a quick lunch outside and then went back to the villa, turned on the stove, and started processing the vegetables I bought. The basement is a bit cooler than the ground level, but I'm not sure if the temperature will change later in the apocalypse, so I had to use the method I learned online for winter vegetable storage, blanching the green beans, long beans, and eggplants, drying them, putting them in bags, and storing them in the refrigerator. The coriander and chives were washed, dried, chopped, mixed with edible oil, put in bags, and frozen for storage. All the remaining vegetables I took to the specially dug cellar and put them in, unless something goes wrong. They should last for 3 or 4 months there. After all this effort, the day was over. The next day, there were only 2 days left until the apocalypse, and my brother's spatial ability awakening was just 2 days away. At 4 in the morning, I headed straight to the largest market nearby. The market was already crowded before it was light. I bought 20 caddies of food like sticky rice cakes, steamed bread, twisted dough sticks, and fragrant bread at a glance. Now there is less than 7 days until the spring festival. The market is full of people, and the sounds of vendors calling out are rising and falling, very lively. Looking at the crowd, I couldn't help but take out my phone and start taking photos, trying to record this rare moment. On the way, I also bought some wild fish and some interesting things. When I got home, I wandered around the villa a few times, and took out a notebook to write down places that might have been missed. Fortunately, there was still time, and in the afternoon I went to the wholesale market again and replenished the things I had missed. I went to a snack wholesale market again and bought a bunch of snacks. A busy day has passed, but I lay in bed tossing and turning. There is only 24 hours until the apocalypse. Should I do something? Thinking, I started watching videos online again. As soon as I opened the app, a notification popped up. The next morning, I was woken up by a call from my mom. She was urging me to take them to see a house. I smiled and told her to wait until tomorrow, then hung up the phone. On the last day, instead of staying home to pack, I got all dressed up and drove to the bustling city to take a walk. Along the way, I ate a lot and bought a lot of food I like: fried chicken, burgers, barbecue. I also got a beautiful hairstyle and watched the latest comedy movie. As the sun set, I went to the busiest night market nearby and ate my favorite hot pot, snow rice cake, and grilled squid. I wanted to eat so much that I just packed a lot of things back, drive back to the villa, lock the 3 locks of the front door, take the flashlight and check the villa inside and out several times, making sure there was nothing wrong before locking the door and going upstairs. Back in the bedroom, I turned on the surveillance camera to check if there had been any abnormalities during my absence. Everything was fine. Although it was a pity that I didn't get to tour around properly on the last day of this peaceful era, I still felt scared thinking about the person who had been following me. Calmed down for a moment, I turned on the surveillance camera of my hometown, showing my parents and younger brother laughing and chatting around the dining table. In the previous life, they were also laughing like this. but this time, there was one less person who was constantly working inside the house. 3, 2, 1. 10 o'clock in the evening, suddenly, my younger brother, sitting on the sofa, clutched his head in pain and rolled on the ground. My parents rushed over anxiously to ask him. I knew, my younger brother, just like in the past life, had awakened spatial abilities. At that moment, he also knew that the apocalypse had arrived. My younger brother grabbed his mother's arm and told her to call me. My mother didn't know what was happening, but she still picked up her phone and called me. To my surprise, the phone, which usually connected instantly, could not be reached at this moment. As the number of calls increased, the expressions on my younger brother and my parents became more and more impatient. 10 minutes later, it reached its peak. My younger brother pushed his mother away, grabbed the phone, and scolded her. Can't even make a phone call properly. My mom stood there in shock, but she didn't scold him, just turned around and scolded me, calling me an useless waste of space. Why I hadn't answered the phone yet. I was sipping on rose tea, silently enjoying their irritability. Call all my life, but it's still not working, because on the way back, I had torn my phone card into pieces and flushed it down the toilet. I hope you both can live longer, seeing that I couldn't be relied on. My younger brother took my parents and the bank card to the nearest bank, withdrew all the money, then went straight to a 24-hour supermarket nearby and went on a shopping spree. My parents have never been good at saving money, and with all the support I've provided over the years, they've been even more careless with their spending. So when all the money was withdrawn, it was only 3,000 yuan. I was sorting and hanging up the clothes I bought a few days ago. While watching the surveillance camera, 2 hours later, they returned, just in time for the dawn. The apocalypse arrived. At this moment, some areas have already erupted with zombies, and people are on high alert. My hometown is a small county, and it has not been affected yet. Everyone eats and sleeps as usual. Without my support, my parents and younger brother went out and bought a small amount of useful rice, flour, oil, and daily necessities for a month. They even bought a lot of junk food like puffed snacks and fried chicken. My parents don't think anything is wrong, but instead keep praising my younger brother for his outstanding performance. They were even delighted to see my younger brother store a big pile of things into the so-called space system, clapping their hands with excitement. My younger brother said proudly, with this ability, even if the apocalypse lasts forever, we can stock up for the rest of our lives. My father didn't hold back in praising him. My son is really amazing. He has awakened such a powerful skill. From now on, our family will rely on you. My younger brother became even more proud. Mom praised my younger brother a bit, then turned around and started scolding me. Your sister, that dead girl, is still unreachable now. When she can't survive anymore and comes to us, we won't take care of her, and just let her die outside. The ugly face is exactly the same as in the past life. My younger brother and father nodded in agreement. I just smiled and hung the last t-shirt. The closet is now tidy. Now there have been 3 cities with abnormalities, and as related videos on the internet continue to increase, there is panic online. At 1 in the morning, the official issued a statement, mainly to calm the public and tell them not to panic, as they have sent people to handle it. Supplies will not be in short supply. Do not rush to hoard, and report any abnormal situations promptly. Citizens got up from their beds all night and rushed to knock on the doors of supermarkets, pharmacies, and convenience stores. At 4 a.m., videos and pictures about supermarkets being sold out were continuously posted online. Pharmacies and water stations were not spared. Many people were injured during the rush to buy. I checked the news and then turned off the lights and went to sleep. When I opened my eyes again, it was already 11 a.m. Online was flooded with videos about the end of the world. And all stores were completely emptied. I checked the surveillance footage to investigate the situation. There was nothing abnormal. I flipped on the surveillance system of my hometown. My parents had not realized the severity of the situation, still eating and drinking heartily, and had no intention of going out to buy supplies. My younger brother had spread snacks all over the bed, and empty plastic bags were piled up all over the place. When my parents saw the video report on TV about people rushing to buy supplies, they sneered at others for being so foolish, saying that people without abilities or a survival space were just trash, and they deserved to be eliminated by the apocalypse. I smiled without saying anything, got up to cook. I reheated some of the snacks I had packed back yesterday and started eating. After finishing my meal, I started working. I went shopping for a few days and now I'm going to organize everything properly. Today's goal is the bedroom and the study. The bedroom had been briefly tidied up before, and since there wasn't much stuff, I finished in an hour. I came to the study, opened the books in the box, and categorized them on the bookshelf. After finishing, it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was hungry. I took a bunch of Chinese cabbage, cooked some noodles simply, and then cleaned the 2 guest rooms and the bathroom on the second floor. An hour later, I finished and moved to the first floor. To prevent myself from getting bored during this period, I specially bought a lot of kitchen supplies, oven, toaster oven, air fryer, and some bowls, chopsticks, and cooking utensils. I unpacked them one by one and put them into the cabinets. Finally, I finished all the work on the first floor, and it was already 10 o'clock in the evening. I checked the surveillance, and my parents had already gone to bed. There was nothing else in the house, and my younger brother was still playing games on his phone. They had no fear of the end. After 3 days of effort, I finally organized all the purchases according to categories and dates. Looking at the neatly arranged supplies, I felt satisfied and locked the door. Turning to the first floor indoor garden, the radishes, coriander, and scallions I planted a few days ago have sprouted. In half a month, I will be able to eat the first batch of vegetables. I am living in peace and quiet here, while outside it has already become a complete mess. The zombie virus broke out, and it was highly infectious. In just 3 days, the first-tier cities were paralyzed. The situation was severe, and the authorities directly sealed off the city. At once, people were in a panic. Along with the zombie virus, natural disasters also broke out. Just 8 hours ago, the coastal areas have experienced natural disasters such as tsunami and earthquake, causing many casualties. The parents in the surveillance footage seemed to have finally realized something was wrong, and were running around anxiously at home, calling one by one to ask if there are any extra supplies left. They have poor relationships with people, and with the special circumstances, the result can be imagined. They stood in the living room with their phones, muttering angrily. The younger brother was woken up and came out of his room, annoyed and scolding. "What's the rush? It's just beginning. Not like we'll be starving tomorrow. Besides, I have a spatial ability, right?" The parents looked at each other, and the father asked tentatively, "Can your spatial ability produce rice and Tapai cigarettes?" The father was a long-time cigarette addict, and without cigarettes, he would feel terrible. "In my previous life, I knew he couldn't live without cigarettes. So I specially prepared a lot when the end of the world arrived. 5, enough for him to smoke for a year. I didn't expect that once I was gone, his stockpile ran out so quickly." My younger brother laughed mockingly. "Spatial ability is just storing things. You said it's creating things out of nothing." My parents were stunned, and after a while, they couldn't believe it and confirmed it the next day. "So, we need to buy things first and then store them in the space, right? Otherwise, I'm not a turtle in a wish-granting pool." My younger brother took a bottle of cola from the fridge and left laughing. After a while, my parents realized, and regretted it too late. But now it's too late to say anything. They can only try to find food and supplies. There's nothing left to buy on the market. Only a few people are selling online. The price is 3 times the usual. At first, my parents were reluctant to spend money and refused to buy. Even scolded someone in the town's WeChat group who was selling goods. After 3 more days, my parents saw the empty fridge and the fact that only a few people were selling supplies at night, with prices having risen from 3 times to 10 times, and they became panicked. They tried to find the person they had previously scolded to buy some supplies, but the person had blocked them. They had no choice but to think of other ways. During this time, my younger brother remained as calm as ever, eating snacks, drinking beverages, and playing games. Finally, when my parents tried every way possible without success, my mother had no choice but to ask my younger brother to think of a solution. My younger brother didn't even look up from his phone to respond. "Call my sister. There's nothing she can't solve." "Oh, okay, don't bother me while I'm playing games. I'm about to die." Of course my parents know to call me. They've called me dozens of times in these 7 days. But every time it just says the call can't be connected. Mom would start yelling, "Let you die. It would be better. It saves resources." I smiled while sipping the last pearl from my cup of bubble tea, and laughed. Mom suddenly thought of something. We can take a loan online, Dad worried. Would that work? I heard the interest rates are really high. It's the end of the world. Maybe the loan companies will go bankrupt soon and we won't have to pay back. Upon hearing that, Dad thought it made sense and started discussing the loan with Mom, but when they tried all the online loans, they all said that my parents' and my brother's ID cards had already been used for loans. Even the house they are currently living in has been mortgaged. Mom exploded. It must be that dead girl. I knew it. She didn't have good intentions. Mom rushed out to confront me, but as she was about to open the door, she saw a few zombies passing by in front, and quickly stepped back. There was no other way. Mom could only curse me with harsh words. I was secretly laughing. Nothing is left. Yet she's yelling so loudly. She still doesn't have any sense at all. After hearing about this, my younger brother started to lecture my dad every day. At first, Mom felt guilty. Later, after being blamed so much, Mom started to blame my dad, who only cared about his own fun and didn't take care of family matters. The contradiction is escalating. On the 8th day of the apocalypse, the first thing I did when I woke up was check the monitor to see if there was any abnormality around me. Everything is normal. Looking at the calendar, I was overjoyed. I relied on myself and truly survived the 8th day. I cooked 6 red eggs for myself to celebrate my successful rebirth. Watching the chaos at my parents' home through the monitor, I happily devoured a big bowl of noodles. After 8 days, my parents have lost some weight. My father was especially irritable because he had been without cigarettes for 2 days. When he ate an extra piece of pickled vegetable during dinner, he argued with my mother. The 15th day of the apocalypse, just woke up, and saw my parents fighting on the monitor. I found it interesting to prepare hot pot, while boiling beef and watching. They still weren't hungry enough. They still had the energy to fight. I had only eaten half, and my mother had already given up. My father spat at my mother who was sitting on the ground. It's because of your behavior that we had that money loser. If you dare to argue with me again, I'll throw you out tomorrow to feed the zombies. My younger brother came over and saw my mother with a bruised face, and mocked her. You couldn't even keep the house. You deserve it. My mother looked at her favorite son in disbelief. My younger brother remained expressionless. I'm hungry. Get up and cook. Mom didn't move, and Dad stepped forward and slapped her twice. Finally, Mom got up from the ground, and Dad said proudly, "Women just deserve to be hit." Brother nodded in agreement. Finally, on the 21st day after the apocalypse, Mom couldn't stand it anymore and took a kitchen knife in the middle of the night when Dad was asleep, and slashed at him fiercely. Dad died. Mom dragged Dad out of the room and threw him outside, feeding him to the passing zombies. Brother was still addicted to his game and didn't notice what had happened. I couldn't help but be curious. Was the communication device from the previous life also unaffected like this now? Apocalypse. Mom acted as if nothing had happened, still getting up early to clean the house and cook. That's really a tough person. The 22nd day of the apocalypse, the younger brother finally noticed that the father was missing and asked the mother where the father went. The mother, with a low voice, told the younger brother to hand over the resources stored in the space. The younger brother was cautious and only took out part of them. With the food, they temporarily stopped fighting, but 5 days later, which was the 27th day of the apocalypse, the younger brother hit the mother. Just because the mother ate one more mouthful of noodles, he hit the mother while shouting, "You old hag, do you know how precious food is now? How dare you eat so much?" Mom knelt on the ground with tears in her eyes. I was wrong. I shouldn't have eaten so much. In the following days, Mom went from eating half a bowl of food to a quarter of a bowl, and finally to a few spoiled noodles. Meanwhile, the younger brother, who was once plump, became emaciated. The younger brother began to order Mom to go out and find food for him. Mom looked outside at the zombies, but was too afraid to go out. The younger brother then kicked her out of the house. The zombies heard the noise and came over. With Mom's sharp scream, more zombies gathered. The younger brother saw Mom's red eyes staring at him, and he stepped back in fear. "Don't look at me like that. Blame your lack of ambition. Why didn't you stock more food back then?" But a second later, his arm suddenly felt a sharp pain. He tried to break free from the zombies' bites, but it was of no use. Other zombies, having just finished eating their mother's skeleton, poured in through the door that had been left open. The scene was too bloody, I couldn't bring myself to look. When I opened my eyes again, the empty living room only had a skeleton still connected to fresh flesh. My brother and mother both died on the 31st day of the apocalypse. Seeing their fate, I thought I would be happy, but tears still flowed uncontrollably. That day, I cried for a long time in my room. In the following days, I only occasionally turned on the surveillance camera of the old house. Seeing the rundown house, I couldn't help but feel dazed. Avoid overthinking. I keep my schedule full every day. The small vegetable garden on the balcony is also thriving under my care. My cooking skills have improved, and I have learned to make many pastries besides regular dishes. 6. After this, opening a small restaurant should be no problem, of course. I have also learned many other skills: painting, calligraphy, programming, and photo editing, among others. During that time, there were several times when zombies and search teams passed by my villa, but due to the sufficiently advanced security equipment, they all failed to get in. The 50th day of the apocalypse, communication is largely interrupted, and the world is in paralysis. Fortunately, I had installed solar power and water collection systems in advance, so my life remains normal. I took out the radio I had prepared in advance and learned the latest news outside. The 159th day of the apocalypse, I learned from the radio that the experimental drug for the zombie virus has entered the testing phase. The 301st day of the apocalypse, the experimental drug for the zombie virus has been successfully developed, and the zombie vaccine is also close to being developed. The 700th day of the apocalypse, the zombie vaccine has been successfully developed and is being promoted. The 730th day of the apocalypse, all zombies in the country have been completely eliminated. The streets and towns are in the elimination phase. The 800th day of the apocalypse, the country was officially reopened, and the apocalypse ended. I stepped out of the villa and greedily breathed in the fresh sunlight. Great, I'm still alive. Story 2. As the scorching apocalypse loomed, my mom and I were hiding in a summer resort, chilling with popsicles, when suddenly my dad, the son-in-law who moved into our home, showed up unannounced with his parents and his mistress. They even brought an 8-year-old boy, whom my grandmother proudly declared as their true heir, dismissing me as a financial loss. In a fit of rage, my mom confronted him but was doused in gasoline by my grandmother. My grandfather then ignited it, proclaiming that once my mom was gone, everything would belong to my dad. Tears streaming, I rushed to save my mom, only to be drenched in gasoline myself by my grandmother, who scorned me as a thankless wretch. Better off dead with my mom. Pain, intense pain. Ah, I screamed, waking from this nightmare, drenched in sweat. Nora, my mom, burst through the door, also sweating profusely. We had shared the same dreadful dream. This isn't just a nightmare, Mom, we've been reborn. I clenched my fists. This time, it's our turn to fight back. They think they can wipe us out, over my dead body, Nora. My mom embraced me, crying uncontrollably, feeling so guilty for choosing such a father for me. All I could do was comfort her, reminding her that without him, I wouldn't exist. So, in a way, we still gained something. The immediate plan was to prepare. This time, we would hide and watch them destroy each other. With half a month till the recurrence of the extreme heat from our past life, we would head to the summer resort in 10 days. Currently, we were still at home. I needed to attend to my company, my mom to her dance classes, and my dad was always out, busy with his mistress and their son. As we had found out, I hired a private detective to investigate my dad and contacted an agent to sell the villa in the summer resort at a discount, denying my dad a chance to stay there. After all, it was my mom's property before marriage and solely in her name. My dad wouldn't even know it was sold. Then, I directly bought a fruit orchard that was up for sale. The location of the orchard was excellent, right at the mountaintop near the summer resort, besides a 3-story building that covered over 200 square meters, owned by the orchard keeper. There were no other houses nearby. In our past life, my mom and I had visited the orchard the day after we arrived at the resort. My mom had then expressed her wish to retire in such a place someday, planting various fruit trees and flowers, owning pets, and watching the sunset from a rocking chair. I had responded, "That sounds wonderful. Once the company is stable, I'll join you here." The orchard owner, overhearing this, offered to sell it to me at a bargain and insisted I keep his contact ending in 1 8 and 3 5s, which I remembered very clearly. Despite the high temperatures being half a month away, my mom flew there early to start constructing a perimeter wall. As in apocalyptic times, people like my dad posed the greatest threat. Meanwhile, I rushed to settle my company's affairs. Once done, I grabbed my suitcase and left, taking the property deeds with me and also distributing all the food and drinks from our fridge to others, confident that my dad wouldn't notice. My mom hadn't been home for 3 days, and he hadn't even realized. Upon reaching the orchard, I found my mom supervising the workers, wearing a safety helmet. The 3-meter-high wall was already taking shape, topped with iron nails, glass shards, and even electrified to deter intruders. "Mom, you're moving fast." I was surprised. It had only been 3 days, and I thought it would take at least 5 to 10. "I've hired 3 construction crews to work shifts," she explained. "The tiles on the walls of the house have all been knocked down and replaced with insulation material. The windows are upgraded to bulletproof glass, and we've applied a heat-insulating film on both sides to prevent explosions from high temperatures. I've also ordered solar panels and batteries." My mom has hardly slept these past few days, her eyes red. When I urged her to go to bed, her eyes misted up. "Nora, every time I close my eyes, I see that nightmare and just can't sleep. Let me keep busy, it helps me feel better." I felt so heartbroken and hugged her tightly. "Don't worry, they'll get what they deserve." The detective sent me the investigation report. It turns out my dad has been keeping his mistress in our own neighborhood, renting the villa under her name. He visits her every morning and only leaves at night. What's more outrageous is that my grandparents are living there too, happily leeching off my mom and still not satisfied. The detective even sent an audio clip where they were discussing how to kill my mom to inherit her properties. I was furious, thinking, this is how you want to play it, just wait for the consequences. With the heatwave 18 days away, the construction crew has finished the wine cellar in the house, equipped with a temperature control system. As long as there's electricity, no matter how hot it gets outside, the cellar will stay around 20 degrees Celsius. My mom said it's for survival. In case it gets so hot that the air conditioning fails, we can take refuge there. This reminded me to order 5 air conditioners immediately, just in case. 10 days before the heat wave, my dad called my mom to ask where she had gone, wondering why there was no food left in the fridge. I checked the surveillance footage I had installed before leaving. My dad was calling from in front of the fridge while Grandma was rummaging through the cabinets, cursing about the lack of even a bag of rice. "I don't know, go buy some yourself. I'm busy." My mom hung up abruptly, looking upset and sounding harsh, her eyes red. My dad was stunned, as my mom had never spoken to him so harshly before. The next second, he started cursing at her, threatening her life and even calling me. I didn't bother with him and just hung up and blocked his number, letting him rant. Unexpectedly, he called our accountant. The accountant called me right away, saying my dad asked her to transfer $100,000, but she didn't dare. Block him too. He's already getting $50,000 a month for expenses and now he wants an extra $100,000. Ridiculous. If it wasn't for the $50,000 he already gets, he wouldn't get a penny from me. My mom's phone rang again, obviously him trying to ask her for money after being blocked by the accountant. "What, can't afford rice now, coming to me for money?" My mom's tone was sharp, but my dad became flustered. "Wife, is there some misunderstanding?" "Humph," my mom scoffed coldly. "You're keeping a mistress and even have an 8-year-old son. Did you think you could hide it forever? Let me tell you, Bob. Not only will I divorce you but I'll take back every penny you spent on your mistress." Seeing my mom so agitated, I quickly rubbed her back and hung up the phone for her. "There's no need to get so upset. They'll definitely get their comeuppance," she said. "Of course they will. If heaven won't take them, I will." "Nora, why do you think they want to kill us?" "It's because your dad signed a prenuptial agreement, and we've had our assets notarized before getting married, all these years. Your dad hasn't worked at all. It's all been on me. If we divorced, he'd have nothing." My mom couldn't hold back her emotions, and tears started to fall. "I miss my dad so much. He told me Bob was no good and to watch out for him. Why didn't I listen?" "Mom, Grandpa is watching over us from heaven. Isn't that why we were reborn?" I hugged my mom, my eyes also red with tears. I missed Grandpa too. The stern yet warm-hearted old man who always told me to behave like a proper girl. To be seen and not heard, to follow the rules, yet he would gladly get down on the floor and let me ride on his back like a horse. Yes, Grandpa must be watching over us, so we need to live well for him to see. My mom finally calmed down and went back to supervising the work. I turned on the surveillance and saw that my dad and the others had gathered in the living room for a secret meeting, discussing how to deal with my mom and me. Their plan, as it turned out, was to kill us before the divorce could happen. My grandmother looked fierce and sinister. Let me do it, I'm old anyway, it's worth it. In our previous life, it was my grandmother who made the move. I shivered at the thought. Truly wicked people are worse than animals. Just like in our past life, they decided to let Grandma take action. With Grandpa assisting, they planned to douse us in gasoline and set us on fire, ensuring neither my mom nor I could escape. But this time, they couldn't find us. My dad tried to find out through his company colleagues where I was on a business trip, but even they didn't know. My mom was even more tight-lipped. Her friends didn't even know she was planning to divorce. After getting nowhere with his inquiries, my dad's face grew darker, his lips twitching as if he was a ghoul crawled out from hell. Nora, come see how this cold storage looks, my mom called me, and I quickly turned off the surveillance and ran over. The cold storage was converted from an existing cellar. Now, with the cooling system on, it was chillingly cold and barely habitable, but the space was huge, about 75 square meters, definitely sufficient. Awesome, I gave a thumbs up. With the cold storage finished, the whole house was nearly done being renovated. I left the finishing touches to my mom and went to stock up. Just before leaving, my mom handed me a list of supplies. I glanced at it on my way. 50 bags of rice, 100 boxes of noodles, 100 pounds each of various flours like glutinous rice flour, as well as soybean oil, corn oil, peanut oil, and various kinds of canned goods that could last 20 years without spoiling. All were included. I was dazzled by the list. No wonder Mom thought of everything. I wouldn't have been so thorough, but I had made preparations too. I downloaded a doomsday supply list online, which included these staples, everyday items, as well as essential antibiotics, vitamins, and various vegetable seeds. I had my mom set up a fish pond on the first floor to breed robust species like tilapia, so we would have fresh fish to eat in case of enduring heat. I chose not to stock up in the county town to avoid drawing attention. It took me over 4 hours to get to the province. First, I rented a 20-ton truck and headed straight to the wholesale market. It's a good thing my grandfather insisted I gain grassroots experience when he was alive. Starting with logistics, allowing me to obtain a B2 driving license in my senior year of college. Otherwise, things would be too troublesome now, especially since in these end times, trusting people is risky, and hiring a driver is like adding a ticking time bomb. My mom sent a message saying the construction crew was already evacuating. I replied, "All right, I expect to be home by tomorrow afternoon. Let them withdraw slowly. We're not in a hurry and still have plenty of time." The ones in a hurry were my dad and his group. My dad was frantically looking for traces of my mom and me, having asked all our relatives and friends to no avail. In desperation, he even started going through my address book and calling my former classmates. That turned out to be quite amusing. I posted on my social circle, "My parents are divorcing. I chose my mom, so if my dad has harassed you, please block him. If you want to reconcile, block yourself. If you're here for the drama, grab some popcorn and continue following." Finally, the owner of the wholesale market had time to attend to me. I had integrated a list of supplies for the end times, which my mom and I downloaded online, and handed it to the owner, saying, "Please load up according to this list." "Are you opening a store?" the owner asked. Seeing that I was a new face, I smiled and nodded. "Yes, a general store in the countryside. We need a bit of everything." "Got it." The owner went to call someone to load the goods, while I went to the largest local pharmaceutical supplier. Luckily, I already ran a company and had some connections. I had arranged for the necessary documents a few days prior, so I only needed to hand over the list. The manager serving me didn't even ask why I needed so many medicines. He just asked where they needed to be delivered. Of course, it was to the truck. At around 7 p.m., my mom came to find me. The workers had just finished loading the last bag of charcoal onto the truck, handed me the bill, collected the money, and left. We, of course, were not in a rush to return home, with the apocalypse approaching. It was naturally time to treat ourselves to a lavish meal at a super 5-star hotel. Go shopping, then return to the hotel for a good night's sleep. We planned to drive home early the next morning. My mom came looking for me with this plan in mind. We had to enjoy ourselves to the fullest. At the hotel, my mom ordered Australian lobster, I ordered king crab. My mom ordered Buddha jumps over the wall. I went for truffle delicacies. My mom chose ivory clams. I picked wild yellow croaker. The theme was luxury and extravagance, as my mom said. We had to spend freely to make this rebirth worthwhile. At the mall, we were even more extravagant. My mom walked into a store and said, "Not these, but everything else will take." "Wait, Mom, calm down, we need to stay calm." I hugged her, trying to temper her excitement. What if the high temperatures only lasted a few months? How would we manage afterwards? Fortunately, my mom took my advice and halved our purchases, laden with bags. We returned to the hotel and lay on the soft beds, feeling a sense of relief that we wouldn't be the ones to perish this time. 9 days before the apocalypse, I backed the truck into the yard as close to the door as possible and started unloading. The electric cart my mom had insisted on buying proved very useful. She handled the ground operations while I unloaded from the truck, speeding up the process significantly. The cargo was extensive. The items at the very front were smokeless charcoal, used for barbecuing. As my favorite foods were all kinds of skewers, making smokeless charcoal indispensable, one box could burn for 3 hours, and I had bought a total of 50 boxes. Thankfully, we have an electric pushcart, so my mom was able to stack up boxes, 10 at a time, and move them to the storage room on the first floor. The storage room was already fitted with shelves, and all we needed to do for the charcoal was to place it in the coolest part of the room to keep it dry. It doesn't spoil anyway. Originally, the house had a cellar that could be used for storing rice, flour, and cooking oils, but my mom had it converted into a cold storage. As a result, foods like rice, flour, oils, and canned goods that can be stored at room temperature were stacked in a storage room on the second floor. The walls there are not only insulated but also equipped with cooling panels, combined with an air conditioning unit, even if the air conditioning fails later on. The room can still maintain a temperature around 28 degrees Celsius to prevent the food from spoiling. Since it's just my mom and me, I buy rice in 10-pound bags. My mom asked for 50 bags, which is just 500 pounds in total. Feeling it might not be enough, I ordered an extra 50 bags, making it 100 pounds of rice. We also ordered 100 pounds each of high-gluten flour, low-gluten flour, and glutinous rice flour, as well as corn oil, peanut oil, and soybean oil in 2-liter containers. We got 100 bottles of sesame oil as well. If we don't use it all, we'll just donate it. In total, it took my mom and me from 2 to past 6 o'clock to unload just half of the 20-ton truckload before we were too exhausted and went back inside to have dinner. I couldn't be bothered to cook. I just took a ready-made pizza from the fridge, heated it in the microwave, and opened 2 bottles of soda. It was a simple yet satisfying meal. "Nora, don't you think something's missing in this house?" my mom asked, lounging on the sofa while I served her food and drinks. Then it struck her. "Nora, we need a home theater system." I had to agree. After all, how could we not enjoy watching dramas or singing karaoke at home? "Mom, how about we finish unloading tomorrow, then have some fun in the province? When we come back the day after, we can set up a home theater system," I suggested. Deal. My mom and I were on the same page. We began planning what to eat and what to do in the province the next day. Oh, and we needed to check for any oversight. We reviewed today's inventory. Rice, flour, oils, and all kinds of canned goods were there, as were medicines and coal. Even daily necessities like toothbrushes, toothpaste, sanitary pads, and also vegetable seeds and fertilizer were all accounted for. Oh right, we hadn't bought fish seedlings yet. We had to remember to do that when we got back. "Nora, if you want to grow vegetables indoors, we'll need to get some plant lights, or the plants will turn yellow and won't grow properly," my mom noted. She had experience, so it was a must. We also needed to buy fruits. We had a wine cellar where some fruits like lemons, apples, and pears could be stored for a long time. We would need to make a trip to the fruit market when we got back. "Mom, are you sure the solar panels won't burst under high temperatures?" I had checked online. Some people said that solar panels would generate less electricity above 50 degrees Celsius and that higher temperatures could damage the circuits. My mom replied. I asked the seller, and he said these are the most advanced materials that can withstand hundreds of degrees of heat, so even if temperatures reach 100 degrees Celsius and everyone else is gone, the solar panels won't be damaged. But I'm still worried he might be lying, so I didn't just install solar panels on the roof. I also laid them under the fruit trees outside. If the ones on the roof fail, those under the trees should still work. Plus, our storage room on the third floor has a large storage capacity. The technician told me that if fully charged, just the air conditioning alone could last us half a year. Worst case, we won't turn on the air conditioning for the whole house. We could just huddle in the wine cellar and maintain a normal temperature outside, which should last us for a year and a half. I still have a concern. Isn't it more likely for the battery room built on the third floor to overheat and explode? There's no other way. Our house doesn't have a basement. Otherwise, having it in the basement would have been ideal. However, I've had it insulated with thick thermal materials, and the best liquid cooling plates were used. The technician assured me that even if it gets extremely hot outside, it won't be a problem here. All right, it should be fine. I checked it myself. The liquid cooling materials are indeed effective. Even though the air conditioning is always on, it's noticeably cooler in there than outside. Still, I can't help but worry. Mom, let's bring a diesel generator when we come back tomorrow, just for extra security, okay? My mom didn't object but asked, where do you plan to store the diesel? I opened my mouth then fell silent. Right, diesel isn't like tap water, it's a hazardous material and not so easy to store. Plus, I checked online, and 1 liter of diesel generates only 3 kilowatt-hours of electricity. Considering our air conditioning alone consumes upwards of 30 kilowatt-hours a day, how much diesel would we need to store? Relying on solar panels seems more reliable. And my mom has also considered our electricity usage, so the solar panels should suffice. The wiring is buried deep underground. I guess I'm just overly anxious, but then again, who wouldn't be cautious in a rebirth? Last night, I hardly slept at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I envisioned terrifying scenes of being engulfed in flames. It's really left a psychological mark. My father is still frantically searching for us. I believe he won't find us because only my mom and I know about this new piece of land we bought. The next morning, my mom made dumplings that smelled so delicious. My mouth was watering. She hardly slept either, probably got up before dawn to start making them. The dumpling wrappers were chewy, something you can't compare with frozen dumplings. Nora, I just received a voice message from a friend. Your dad went to our dance troupe and asked all my friends if they knew where I was. My mom laughed, though I couldn't tell if it was out of anger or something else. Her tone was sarcastic but with a tinge of melancholy. Your dad never looked for me before. And now that he finally does, it's to kill me. Mom, don't be sad. They'll get their comeuppance soon. I believe that given their selfishness, in times of food scarcity, they will definitely turn on each other. We'll just sit back and watch the drama unfold. It's the 8th day before the heat wave hits. We finally managed to store the last batch of goods in the storage room by midday, and I was so tired I could barely straighten my back. My mom was lying motionless on the sofa. I added a massage chair to our shopping list. We must bring it back tomorrow. After unloading, a good massage will be incredibly soothing. After lunch, we rested for a while before setting off for the province. During the 4-hour drive, my mom lay on a mattress behind the driver's seat, chatting with me intermittently. She reminisced about how diligently my dad pursued her back in the day, utterly devoted and promising to treat her well for a lifetime. She was moved and thought marrying him would lead to happiness. At the time, my grandfather didn't agree, saying that marriages need to be between equals to last, but he couldn't persuade my mom and had to agree to their marriage. However, my grandfather still had one condition. He forced my dad to sign a prenuptial agreement and later made my mom write a will, naming me as their heir. My grandfather thought since I was my dad's biological daughter, leaving the property to me was the safest. Little did he know, despite all his calculations, he couldn't foresee that my dad was more venomous than a tiger. Even I am not spared, thinking about how I was burned in my previous life and how they intend to repeat the same this life. I'm filled with rage. If I could, I would pour all the gasoline of my last life over them and throw a lit match at them. Asterisk ding, asterisk. the private detective sent me a message. There's someone with your dad's mistress. I immediately pulled the car over to the side of the road, and my mom leaned over. What happened? My dad is being cheated on. As I responded to my mom, I messaged the detective, send me the video. Almost immediately, the video came through. In a corner of the park, the mistress was wrapped up in the arms of a man, kissing and caressing. This is happening in a public park. TSK, TSK, TSK. I watched intently, and suddenly it hit me. Could that boy not even be my dad's child? At this moment, I felt like a wild animal in a field, eager to bite into each and every melon. The detective was very diligent. Without me even asking, he said, I've already sent the mistress's child and your father's DNA samples for a paternity test. We should know by tomorrow if this child is your father's biological son. Great. I transferred 50,000 yuan to him and reminded him, the weather's off lately, stock up on some food. That's all I could remind him. My mom had already informed the relevant authorities, and they said they would report it. They advised us not to spread the word to avoid panic. It seems quiet for now, but I believe the government must be preparing something, so, the priority for us now is to take care of ourselves. I first went to the electronics store, bought a massage chair to avoid forgetting later, along with home theater equipment, making sure nothing was missed. Then I headed to the wholesale market with a long shopping list, mainly focusing on groceries like chips, biscuits, various nuts, all to be bought in small bags and moved by the box. I also stocked up on various beverages and ingredients like tapioca and jelly. My mom also specifically asked me to buy 10 boxes of mooncakes, mentioning that they are high in sugar and calories but keep well and could be life-saving in an emergency. I was amazed. Aren't canned goods and military rations designed to last for over 20 years? But no matter, if mom says to buy, I buy. I had already bought 100 kilograms of sugar, but thinking about how much we use, I decided to buy another 100 kilograms for safety. Then my mom and I went straight to the slaughterhouse, ordered 10 pigs, 10 sheep, and 3 cows. They even had deer meat for sale, so I ordered 2 on the spot. They would deliver the goods the next morning, and we'd take them straight home to store in the cold room. By the time we finished, it was past 8 in the evening. My mom and I were starving, so we went to that super 5-star hotel again and ordered a full Manchuhan imperial feast, eating till we nearly vomited. After a hearty meal, it was nearly 10 o'clock, we went straight to the SPA center, and I fell asleep there, only to be woken up by my mom around 12:30. Nora, let's go back to the room to sleep. Okay. I rubbed my eyes and got dressed. After all, it would be a waste not to sleep in a presidential suite. The alarm clock on my phone woke us up at 5 in the morning. With 7 days left until the high-temperature apocalypse, my mom and I drove the truck to the fruit wholesale market and handed the list to the owner to load up. 50 boxes of lemons, each weighing 38 pounds. 50 boxes of apples, each 52 pounds. 50 boxes of mangoes, each 48 pounds. I noticed that yellow-skinned fruits were on sale, and in this season, one certainly shouldn't miss the old salt-preserved yellow-skinned fruits. One query, and they were $7 per gene, with each box weighing 50 gene. I immediately ordered 50 boxes. These items spoil easily, but I've figured out a way to preserve them. After washing, I can mash them up and freeze them in ice cube trays. When I want to use them, I just toss them into water. This method allows them to be preserved for a long time, probably up to a year and a half. There were also grapes, durians, watermelons, and more. The list was missing many items, so I just had the workers carry them on the spot. After finishing, I passed by a home goods store. I parked and had them load 3 boxes of ice cube trays into my car. Any fruit that couldn't be stored fresh would be mashed and frozen into cubes for convenience and longevity. At around 7:10 a.m., we arrived at the wholesale vegetable market. Onions, garlic, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and other durable vegetables were all boxed up. Then, we headed to the nearby frozen food market for items like corn skewers, lamb skewers, beef skewers, sausages, meatballs, and more. Anything that could be grilled or fried, all boxed up. There were also pre-cooked dishes like steamed buns, baozi, tea house chicken feet, steamed fish, and more. Regardless of health or hygiene concerns, we loaded everything up. Our home freezer was big enough. We arrived at the slaughterhouse after 8 a.m. the fresh meat ordered the previous night was already segmented and packed. The workers loaded it up immediately. I asked the owner, and he assured me that the foam boxes they used included ice packs to keep the meat fresh. As long as it got into the freezer on the same day, there would be no risk of spoilage. This packaging method was experienced by many buyers from various cities and counties. By nearly 9 a.m., we headed home. On the way, I bought 3 pots of mint and my mom picked up 2 pots of roses, saying we needed to make roses with thorns. I had to agree. It was time to make those who wronged us bleed. We reached home around 2 p.m. We collapsed on the bed for over half an hour before we started unloading. Simply unloading the fresh meat wasn't enough. It also had to be cut into smaller pieces. Since it was just my mom and me, each bag weighing around 1.5 g was sufficient. My mom and I moved all the meat to the kitchen, then fired up the segmentation process. Pork, lamb, deer meat, and the toughest, beef. The bones were a real challenge. Luckily, the previous owner had left a cutting machine, otherwise, it would have been impossible. Dinner was just thrown together. And we worked until midnight, not stopping until the last piece of beef was in the freezer. Then, my mom and I collapsed on the bed, too exhausted to move. For the time being, there was no rush. Perishable fruits were cleaned, mashed, and poured into ice trays before being placed in the freezer. Non-perishable items were just stored in the refrigeration room. Thankfully, the freezer was large enough. We arranged several rows of shelves, labeled for pork, lamb, beef, deer meat, pre-cooked dishes, and an ice cube area specially for storing fruits that needed freezing and items like popsicles. Everything was conveniently accessible and ready to use. High temperatures marked the 5th last day of a potential doomsday. A private detective sent me the paternity test results. As expected, my dad was not the biological father of the mistress's child. Interestingly, the child also wasn't related to the man from the park. However, the real father's identity wasn't important. Just as long as the child wasn't my dad's, I settled the full fee with the detective and gave him an extra large bonus, letting him know his job was done. I had obtained the information I wanted. My mom asked if I was going to tell my dad. I said, of course, I would tell him, but not now. We would wait until they were desperate, then deliver the final blow to my dad. That's your dad's problem, plus having a second child wasn't really necessary. So I didn't press the matter, my mom said, then burst into laughter. I really want to see your dad's reaction when he finds out the truth. Nora, should I just sue him for divorce in court? No way. Being a businessperson, of course, I think about maximizing benefits. I've already had our legal team buy the highest possible accident insurance for Dad and his group. My mom didn't catch on immediately. She was pampered by my grandfather from a young age. A delicate flower raised in a greenhouse. Unlike me, I was like a new account started by my grandfather after the old one was depleted, raised from childhood to be his heir, with a heart so tough. As long as it's about making money, and it's legal, I'm all in. On the penultimate day of the extreme heat apocalypse, we're not planning to go out tomorrow. My mom and I drove to the market and bought lots of fish to store in the cold storage. We also bought tilapia fingerlings and crayfish. My mom insisted on buying a few peacock fish with big bellies to keep as pets for amusement. Of course, I indulged her. Who else would I spoil if not my own mother? We also ate local specialties like wild vegetables and free-range chicken. There was even a dog meat hot pot on the menu, but neither my mom nor I dared to order it. After a day of fun, we came home in the evening. My mom and I fought over the massage chair. I regretted not buying two, that way we wouldn't have to compete for one and could enjoy it together. The next morning, the outside was shrouded in fog. I glanced at my phone, and the temperature displayed was a staggering 35 degrees Celsius, even though the highest temperature yesterday was only 34 degrees. My dad and his group hadn't given up on finding us. Through the security cameras, I saw they had tried every method they could think of, and contacted everyone they could, but still had no news about us. They even got a bunch of new SIM cards, switching them one by one to call me and my mom, but our phones were set to block strangers, so changing even hundreds of SIM cards wouldn't let their calls through. In the afternoon, I saw a government announcement shared by my assistant on social media. It stated that the extreme heat would continue. urging citizens in need to quickly proceed to the nearest underground parking or bomb shelters where emergency stations had been set up by the government to ensure the safety of the citizens. But my dad and his party didn't take it seriously. Clearly, they were squatting in our villa. The mistress hadn't left for days, sleeping directly in the master bedroom, which infuriated my mom. If it weren't for the fact that my grandfather had bought the villa, she would have sold it. On the day the extreme heat officially arrived, we were indoors with the air conditioning on and didn't feel much. But outside the temperature had already soared to 52 degrees Celsius, in my previous life. That was exactly when my dad and his group had reached the summer resort. My mom and I were nestled on the couch, binge-watching TV shows and munching on popsicles when they burst through the door, hurling insults. They called my mom a useless hen and me a loss-making, ungrateful creature, even splashing gasoline on us. You can imagine, after our deaths, they just holed up in the holiday resort to survive the heat. Now, since they haven't found my mom and me, they couldn't run off to the summer resort like before and were trapped at home. Our home in the south was one of the places where the temperature rose the fastest. By noon here, it was still hovering around 53 or 54 degrees, and our central air conditioning hadn't stopped. Their place had already exceeded 60 degrees and was still climbing. I opened the surveillance feed and saw that they had all squeezed into the wine cellar, frantically trying to call someone to fix the air conditioning. I couldn't help but laugh. What were they thinking? No one, no matter how desperate for money, would come out to repair air conditioning in 60-degree heat. It's impossible to fix it well. Oh right, they must have entered the wine cellar at night, enjoying the air conditioning, completely oblivious to how hot it was outside. I saw through some live streams online that some asphalt roads had even melted, suggesting that it's no longer suitable for humans to survive outdoors. The government's silent preparations can no longer be hidden. People online are fervently sharing videos of workers dressed like astronauts, braving the scorching sun and walking down deserted streets, resembling people from the future. I heard that their suits, originally designed for moon landings, have a built-in temperature control system that can withstand temperatures up to 100 degrees Celsius. Because of them, the internet is still up. And I can still see through the surveillance how my dad and his company curse the weather, the air conditioning repair, and then curse at my mom and me, saying we'd be better off dead outside so they wouldn't have to lift a finger. How can they have everything their way? I pulled out my phone and added my dad back. The moment he accepted, I sent him a video of his mistress hugging someone in the park. My dad opened it immediately, and the volume on his phone was quite loud, echoing through the wine cellar. What is this? The mistress quickly snatched my dad's phone, her face turning pale. This is a misunderstanding. I never did such a thing. Whether she did it or not isn't important. I also sent over a paternity test report, and then left a voice message. Mom said that they were planning to have a second child, but she never got pregnant, so they went for a checkup. The doctor said she was fine. The problem was with my dad. He's the one who can't produce. After saying that, I blocked him. That felt great. My dad wanted to know what was going on, but all he got was a big exclamation mark. The wine cellar, which was originally full of maternal and filial piety, united in cursing me and my mom, now became incredibly awkward, especially since the mistress's moans could be heard every time my grandparents played the video. So disgusting yet so moving. Bob, believe me, this woman isn't me. Oh right, it must be a deep fake. Today's technology makes fakes look just like real. That loser just can't stand seeing our happy marriage and used this to disgust us. The mistress tried to explain, while my dad's face darkened. Let me see your phone. What, you don't trust me? The mistress screamed and stepped back, clutching her phone tightly, clearly guilty and afraid to let my dad see. Just hand over the phone. Why all the fuss? My dad got angry. He wasn't stupid. The mistress's behavior said it all. Or maybe he had already had his suspicions. In any case, he lunged to snatch the phone. The mistress struggled and kicked at my dad. My grandma, seeing this, couldn't bear it and also lunged forward, grabbing the mistress's hair and scratching her face. Can you all just stop? I'm trying to play a game here. My grandma's beloved grandson was sitting nearby playing on his phone, not even looking up once, cursing under his breath. My grandpa, trembling with anger, walked over and slapped his grandson hard across the face. You little bastard. With a loud smack and a painful sting, the three brawlers froze for a moment, and the grandson too, stunned. Then he reacted, "How dare you hit me, you old fool." He suddenly sprang up, charging headfirst into his once beloved grandfather's chest. Bang! Dad, old man, Grandpa fell to the ground, and Dad and Grandma rushed over, crying out in alarm, unfazed and still angry. The grandson kicked his grandfather viciously in the thigh, shouting, "Old man, you're dead now. How dare you hit your grandfather, you beast." Dad got up and slapped his beloved son hard. Unexpectedly, his son fought back, punching and biting, shouting, "I'll let you hit me, you villain, I'll kill you." Despite being only 8 years old, the boy was well-nourished and strong, standing at 150 centimeters tall, with Dad now nearly 50 and caught off guard. He was quickly overpowered and pinned to the ground. Grandma, crying, threw herself over him to protect him, pleading, "Stop hitting, stop." Even she, his beloved grandmother, received several punches before the grandson stopped, threatening, "If you dare hit me again, I'll kill you all." Throughout this ordeal, the other woman watched with cold indifference, even smirking at the scene. It was clear, like mother, like son, they were all cut from the same cloth. Old man, after protecting Dad. Grandma hurried to check on Grandpa, only to burst into tears when she found him unresponsive. His eyes rolled back. This was serious trouble. Dad, barely conscious himself, tried to call an ambulance, but the line was continuously busy. It was a common issue in emergency situations. Even if you get through, there might not be an ambulance available. "Mom, we'll take him ourselves." After several unsuccessful attempts to reach emergency services, Dad decided to carry Grandpa out himself. But as soon as they opened the door to the wine cellar, a blast of heat hit them. It was just the basement. By the time Dad and Grandma reached the top of the stairs, they were drenched in sweat. Grandma, in her 70s, was gasping for breath and could barely walk in the extreme heat, a sure risk for heatstroke. "Mom, you stay back, I'll take Dad to the hospital myself." Dad, seeing Grandma struggling, didn't wait for her and rushed out with Grandpa. Grandma tried to follow but couldn't keep up, and slowly made her way back. At the cellar door, she tried to push it open but couldn't. She knocked on the door, pleading, "May, please let me in." There was no response from inside. Through the surveillance, I could see the other woman and her plump son blocking the door, clearly unwilling to let Grandma in. Grandma continued to knock, begging, "Please let me in. It's too hot, I can barely breathe." The temperature outside had soared past 62 degrees Celsius. Despite the basement being cooler, Grandma's profuse sweating and increasing weakness indicated that it wasn't cool enough. But the other woman still wouldn't open the door. Eventually, Grandma's strength faded, and she slumped to the ground, unable to even call out anymore. Dad hadn't returned yet. All I could do was watch the situation at home through the surveillance feed. The other woman and her son were comfortably hiding in the cellar, munching on chips and scrolling through their phones. How could I let them be so comfortable? I downloaded the surveillance footage of Grandma knocking and collapsing, as well as the other woman and her son laughing and snacking, and sent it directly to Dad. Time for dinner. My mom called me over. The first day of the heat wave brought a lunch of sweet and sour fish, pork in batter, smashed cucumbers with century eggs and green peppers. I love each dish, especially the pork in batter. I could easily eat a whole pound of it myself. Of course, it wouldn't be complete without a glass of ice-cold salted lemon water. I added some mint leaves. In this scorching weather, a sip was incredibly refreshing. "Mom, you missed quite the drama while you were cooking, but don't worry, I've saved it all. I'll show you in a bit." "No need to wait, let's watch it while we eat." Mom couldn't wait, especially eager when she saw the video of my grandfather being knocked over by his beloved grandson. She laughed so hard, slapping her thigh. "Ha, he always calls us a loss, but he's the one who's truly costly. He could have lost his life." Tisk. TSK, TSK. When Mom saw the footage of Grandma knocking on the door, unable to get in, and then collapsing, she couldn't help but remark, "Evildoers will eventually grind each other down. Heaven really does watch over us." Isn't that the truth? I didn't expect them to start fighting so quickly either. I don't know how things are with my dad, but things have definitely come to a head on Grandma's side. After dinner, I continued watching the surveillance footage. The mistress received a call, seemingly from my dad. After the call, she opened the door, checked on my grandma, kicked her to make sure she was dead, then closed the door and made another call. I heard her say, "Yes, he's found out. He wants to kill your son. I'm sending you the location. Come quick, we need to deal with him." Who is she sending the location to? Who are they planning to deal with? Now I'm hesitating whether to call the police or just watch as these villains take each other down. About half an hour later, a burly man rang our doorbell. The mistress rushed to let him in, and they both headed straight to the wine cellar in the basement. Grandma's body had already been moved aside. The chubby boy brightened up at the sight of the man, diving into his arms. "Dad, did you bring me anything tasty?" They really do look alike, father and son. This whole situation with my dad, I couldn't help but send him the surveillance footage with a warning, "Be careful, they've recognized each other as father and son and are ready to finish you off. This is my last act of filial piety. I'm not sure what's going on with my dad, but on this end, I can see the mistress and the man are quite affectionate, all lovey-dovey. Too bad I don't have the man's WeChat, otherwise I'd send him the video too. I never thought my dad would dare to come back, especially alone and so quickly, armed with a large machete. It must still be blazing hot outside." He drove up to the front of the villa and burst through the door, already drenched in sweat, and was panting by the time he stormed into the basement. He kicked open the door to the wine cellar. The door wasn't locked and no one was blocking it, so it swung open easily, and my dad charged inside. "I'll kill you both, you treacherous pair." My dad believes in striking first, and the three inside were indeed unprepared, especially the man who immediately took a knife to the arm, blood spurting out instantly. "Bob, you," the mistress cried out to my dad, but before she could finish, she too was struck by the knife, slashed across the neck, her blood spraying all over her grandson's face. "Wow," the grandson burst into tears. "Damn mutt." My dad swung his knife like a madman, and the burly black man finally reacted, shielding his son from a blow before grabbing the blade to fight back. The whole scene was a bloody mess. From having the upper hand at the start, my dad ended up getting slashed several times by the burly man, collapsing and convulsing on the ground, unable to attack anymore. "Nora, what are we going to do now? This house has become a murder scene. We can't live in it. But I can't bear to sell it since we grew up here." My mom looked at the bloody scene, her eyes filled with regret. I understood, but it didn't stop me from feeling relieved. "Mom, didn't I buy a high-value accidental insurance policy for Dad? It should cover the cost of several villas for us." Mom sighed deeply, then suddenly chuckled. "Forget it, I'm not going to pretend anymore. Nora, let's have some skewers and open a bottle of white wine. That's more like it, at times like this. You should play, 'Today is a good day, everything you wish for will come true. Today is a good day.' Lamb skewers, venison skewers, and some pork belly. Oh, and should we have large shrimp? Mom, I want to eat that lobster, the biggest one in the aquarium. I'm afraid it will lose its creaminess if we wait any longer." My mom can hold her liquor, and I'm even better. Having trained with my grandfather at the dining table since I was young, it has to be fake yen mutai. I poured a glass for my mom and one for myself, and we toasted. That night, both my mom and I dreamed of Grandpa, his head surrounded by a halo, looking at us with a benevolent smile, as if he had never left. When we woke up, my mom was hugging me, smiling blissfully. "Nora, my dad came to see me last night." I smiled just as happily. "I know, Grandpa came to see me too. He patted my head and praised me for growing up and doing well. Indeed, I had handled things quite well." Having called the police immediately, the police arrived over 2 hours later. The moment the door to the wine cellar was opened, a blast of cold air mixed with the smell of blood hit us. My dad and his mistress were already dead. The burly black man sat against the wall, still holding the machete, seemingly alive, while his son sat next to him, engrossed in his video game. "Damn, that's stupid. Just a bit faster and I could have gotten a triple kill. They stole my kill." The high temperatures continued. The government's operations were orderly. Supplies were continuously transported from the north to ensure the needs of the people, so the citizens in the shelters waited patiently for the heat to pass. Things were fine for my mom and me. Although temperatures had soared to 60 degrees and the air conditioning had failed at one point, our air cooler kept working, so we weren't affected. Now everyone was hoping for rain. Most videos I watched were people praying for rain. There was even a Taoist priest live streaming a rain prayer. I gave a thumbs up. The priest said, "Thank you for your support, family. I hope the heavens see your enthusiasm and bring rain soon." 3 months passed. I had gained 10 pounds. And my mom had gained even more, 15 pounds. She dared not step on the scale anymore. I dragged her to exercise and get fit, arranging all sorts of home workouts to keep us looking good even while staying at home. The first rain came in mid-November. "This isn't a nightmare, Mom. We're reborn." Indeed, it had rained. We had just stepped outside, not even a trace of raindrops on the windows, probably evaporated instantly by the high heat, but the next morning, I heard the pitter-patter of rain. And Mom rushed into my room. This time, without her calling, I was already up. We both raced outside, jumping and dancing in the rain in the yard, ecstatic beyond words. We had finally made it through. With the high temperatures behind us, a new beginning awaited us. Story 2. In the high-temperature doomsday, the water I painstakingly found was generously given to the neighbors by my adoptive parents. They were praised by outsiders, while I became the ungrateful and selfish white-eyed wolf in their mouths. When I opened my eyes again, I was back before the doomsday, facing the neighbors' requests for help. I generously invited everyone to my home as guests. Isn't it just about being beautiful, hearted and kind-natured? I can do it too. 1. Sister, you won't be unhappy that I shared the water with everyone, right? I've known Leah for so many years. I can't just watch her die of thirst, can I? As expected. She's an ungrateful white-eyed wolf. We've been neighbors for so many years. What's wrong with sharing some water with everyone? It's just water. We can go find more after we finish drinking it. You're required to bring the water back tonight, otherwise, don't come back home. The noisy voices were headache-inducing. I suddenly opened my eyes and found myself lying in the narrow and cramped utility room. The scene in the dream was too strange. The high temperature of 60 or 70 degrees Celsius had lasted for 3 months without ending. At first, there were only power and water restrictions. Later, the rivers dried up, and the groundwater was also drained. The entire society came to a standstill. In order to survive, humans had to go out to find drinking water to meet the body's needs. But I never expected that all the water I fought so hard to get was given away by my adoptive parents to outsiders. In the end of the story, I was sold to a pervert by my adoptive parents for 2 bottles of water and became a tool for the other party to draw blood every day. 2. Thinking of the day and night torture in the dream, I was covered in cold sweat. In the dream, I endured the high temperature of 50 or 60 degrees Celsius every day to find water for my adoptive parents' family. But in the end, because I was reluctant to share the water with outsiders, I was accused of being selfish and an ungrateful white-eyed wolf. But if I'm an ungrateful white-eyed wolf, what are they? Naomi raised her own children to be plump and healthy, but she beat and scolded me, the adopted daughter. Jasper seemed fair on the surface, but in the end, didn't he still drive me, the adopted daughter, out of the house and not let me come back until I found water? As for Madeline and Jackson, this pair of siblings, the sister is a hypocrite, and the brother is a lovesick fool. They both like to use other people's things to set off their own kindness. I rubbed my forehead. The things that happened in the dream were too strange, but the high temperature that had lasted for a week recently made it impossible not to be vigilant. I walked out of the utility room and my eyes swept over the lottery ticket on the table, thinking of what happened in the dream. My breath caught, if I remembered correctly. The lottery ticket Jasper bought was only 1 digit away from the first prize of 30 million yuan. I took a photo of the lottery ticket and then put it back in its original place. On the way to the lottery store, my heart seemed to jump out of my throat. Are the things in the dream true? I'll know if I give it a try. 3. In the evening, I lay on my narrow single bed. I was holding 9 lottery tickets with different last digits in my hand, as the lowest ranked person in this family. I didn't have the right to watch TV. I could only prick up my ears to listen to the movement outside. The TV host was announcing the winning numbers. I took a deep breath, and unconsciously, a layer of sweat gathered in my palms. Soon, the first prize numbers came out. My hand holding the lottery ticket trembled violently. I won. The bonus was 30 million yuan. After tax, there was still 24 million yuan. Only then did my tense spirit finally relax completely. 4. One night passed. At a little after 5 in the morning, the sunlight was already dazzlingly bright. the shabby door was kicked hard, and Jackson said impatiently, "I'm starving, hurry up and cook." I got up silently, went to the kitchen to make breakfast, and then picked the most inconspicuous piece of clothing to go out. When I was about to go out, Naomi stopped me and transferred 200 yuan to me. "It's too hot these days. When you come back, bring an cream cake for your brother and sister. It's the one they often eat. Don't waste the rest of the money. Bring it back to me." I pursed my lips and nodded, then turned and walked out of the house. When I was a child, I also cried and asked why I wasn't given food like my brother and sister, because my brother and sister were younger than me. Such an excuse had been used for 20 years. Later, when I grew up, I realized that there was no need for an excuse. It was just that they didn't love me at that time. Jasper and his wife couldn't have children, so they bought me from a trafficker, who knew that within a few months, Naomi got pregnant, and it was twins. Since then, my treatment at home plummeted. I was grateful to them for adopting me, so I took on all the housework from a very young age. But gratitude is one thing. I can never forgive them for selling me to others for 2 bottles of water and making me suffer day by day. 5. Because the winning amount was huge. I went to the provincial capital again before I could claim the prize successfully. 24 million yuan was soon credited to my bank card. I didn't dare to wander around outside. I bought the cream cake Naomi specified and then went home. In the evening, the laughter of the whole family came from the living room. I lay on my small bed, carefully planning how to use the 24 million yuan. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, so part of the money had to be spent. And part had to be saved. After all, after the high-temperature doomsday ended, humans still had to return to normal life. As for how to save it, I wasn't completely at ease leaving it all in the bank. Who knew what the bank would be like after the doomsday? Depreciation was the most optimistic guess. I was afraid that the bank would go bankrupt, so it was best to save part in the national bank, exchange part for gold, and keep some cash on hand. I wrote and drew on the paper. And finally decided to deposit 2 million yuan in the bank, exchange 2 million yuan for gold and keep it with me, and then keep 100,000 yuan in cash for emergencies. The remaining 19 million yuan was used to rent a house and stock up on supplies. 6. You go out and wander around all day. You don't even know how to find a job. Do you know what the neighbors are saying about you? Naomi poked my forehead with her finger, looking extremely disappointed. If someone who didn't know the truth saw this, they might think she was really thinking about me. When I took the high school entrance exam, I clearly got into the best high school, but Naomi, in order to get a high school register for the idol Jackson, forced me to go to the second worst high school in the county. After graduating from university, I originally had the opportunity to enter a foreign-funded enterprise, but Naomi was afraid that I wouldn't come back if I went outside. So she made a scene at the company and forced me to leave my job. Now I'm staying at home as a nanny for their family as she wishes, but she's still not satisfied. In order not to let Naomi notice anything unusual, I had to endure her complaining for more than an hour. The moment I walked out of the door, I took a deep breath. Jasper and his wife did have the kindness of raising me, but after being their servant for so many years, I should have paid them back enough. 7. Miss. Take a look at these villas. Which one do you like? I'll show you around. I looked at the row of 2-story villas and my eyes fell on the last one. These villas were surrounded by mountains and water. The further in, the cheaper the price, and the villa at the very end only cost 50,000 yuan a month in rent. The home appliances and furniture inside were all complete, and it was completely ready to move in. I signed a 1-year contract. After the intermediary took me to register my fingerprint, he left. After seeing off the intermediary, I quickly contacted the decoration team. I originally just wanted to paint a layer of heat-insulating paint on the wall and then install a few solar panels, but I unexpectedly found a pleasant surprise. Raid shelter. The decoration master nodded. It looks like it should be an raid shelter left over from before. The owner didn't mention it, so I guess the intermediary doesn't know either. I looked at the dark hole. With a cool breeze blowing out, I didn't show much expression on my face. The decoration master thought I was scared and took the initiative to say, there should just be a larger cave inside. If you're feeling not ease, I can accompany you down to take a look. I nodded, suppressing the joy in my heart. What raid shelter? This was clearly a free air, conditioned room. I couldn't even imagine how comfortable it would be to hide in it during the high-temperature doomsday. 8. The air raid shelter was very large, with an area of several hundred square meters. I touched the wall. It seemed a bit damp. The decoration master saw my hesitation and laughed. "Don't worry, I'll ask someone to bring a few bags of lime over later. I promise I'll clean it up neatly and there won't be any water seepage." My eyes lit up. "Really? Of course. If you're not satisfied, you don't have to pay." That afternoon, more than a dozen workers painted the air raid shelter with lime water and carefully placed desiccants. The air raid shelter was at least nearly 100 years old. Outsiders hardly knew about it, so the safety was greatly enhanced. I was so happy that I gave each worker a 200 yuan red envelope, seeing that it was getting dark. I quickly sent off the workers in charge of the decoration and then walked back home along the road. The unit building where Jasper's family lived was right across from the villa area. You could see it as soon as you opened the window. Naomi would occasionally complain that Jasper had no ability and that the whole family could only envy the villa area across the street. "You're not home all day. Is there a business worth tens of millions waiting for you to negotiate outside?" Naomi gave me an annoyed look. I had no expression on my face. Well, wasn't it really a business worth tens of millions? I had to go back to my room later and think about how to spend the more than 10 million yuan. 9. As usual, after cooking dinner for the whole family, I lay on my small bed and started planning the supplies I needed to buy. The temperature outside had risen to 38 degrees Celsius, but the temperature in Peace City had occasionally risen to about 40 degrees Celsius in previous years. So this time no one paid much attention. People still went to work and school as usual. Everyone didn't have the habit of stockpiling supplies either, but I, who had experienced the previous high-temperature doomsday, knew, in another week, the temperature would rise rapidly. The highest temperature during the day would even reach 50 degrees Celsius, far exceeding the limit that the human body could bear. But this was only the doomsday high temperature I had experienced, not the limit of the doomsday high temperature. There would be water and power outages. The rivers would dry up, and even the groundwater would be drained. A basin of water placed in the living room could evaporate half of it in a day. Thinking of what happened in the previous life, I pursed my lips and felt that there was still a lot to prepare. There were so many people in the villa area. It was almost impossible to stockpile supplies completely without being noticed by others, and once my supplies were exposed, there would be endless troubles. The only way now was to find a way to reduce the risk of being discovered. One was to use the excuse of decoration to bring the supplies in mixed with the decoration materials. The other was to put some supplies in the villa in plain sight. After others looted them, the underground air raid shelter would be safe. 10. In the previous life, the high-temperature doomsday didn't end until 3 months later. I didn't know when the natural disaster would end, so I could only stockpile as many supplies as possible just in case. Before starting to stockpile supplies, I made a long shopping list for myself. First, food. When it comes to food to stockpile, perhaps many people's first impression is to stockpile rice and flour, but rice and flour are just raw materials. To cook them into food, fuel and water are needed in the whole process. In addition, rice and flour are easy to get damp and grow worms. It's obviously not cost-effective to stockpile too much of this kind of supplies, so I only ordered 200 caddies of flour and 500 caddies of ready-to-cook rice. In addition, there were 1,000 caddies of coarse grains, 200 caddies each of rice noodles, rice sticks, and potato noodles, and 200 caddies each of sealed, packaged egg noodles, fine noodles, and hand-made noodles. As for various instant foods, there was no need to consider so much, 200 boxes each of instant noodles. Self-heating hot pots, and self-heating rice, ham, bread, dried beef, chocolate, biscuits, milk powder of various kinds, walnut milk. 8. Treasure porridge, various nuts, and freeze-dried fruits and vegetables, 10 boxes of each flavor. The high-temperature doomsday might not end anytime soon. Just in case, some foods with an extremely long shelf life also had to be arranged. 10 boxes each of luncheon meat, dried beef, compressed biscuits, beef cans, self-heating food, tuna cans. There were also seasonings, hot pot bases, cured meat, dried sausages, fresh fruits and vegetables, hot balls, beverages, various kinds of meat, dried vegetables. Less fresh food could be bought, but other supplies should be stockpiled for at least 2 years. As for water, it was much simpler to stockpile. 200 boxes of a certain brand of mountain spring water with the longest shelf life were stocked. The shelf life of barreled water was shorter, so 50 barrels were stocked. By the way, 100 large capacity water storage barrels and water purification tablets were ordered, and they would be filled with tap water in advance. After the 2 most important items were ordered, it was time to prepare various daily necessities, all kinds of clothes, bed sheets and quilt covers, disposable underwear, toothpaste and toothbrushes, shampoo and shower gel, toilet paper and sanitary napkins. Although some supplies might go bad due to the expiration date, it's better to stockpile more now than to regret later, and wet wipes were particularly important. On the list, I drew a big asterisk in the position belonging to wet wipes. I planned to stockpile 100 boxes first. They could be used to wipe the face and body at that time. 11. The next day, at a little after 4 in the morning, the sun rose. The bright sunlight shone through the curtains, stinging my eyes. I sighed. The utility room was stuffy and hot every morning. My clothes seemed to stick to my body. I opened the weather forecast on my phone. The 41°C high temperature made my heart palpitate a bit, but thinking that it would be even hotter in the future, I had to get up from the bed resignedly. Naomi was also awake. After seeing me obediently go to the kitchen to prepare breakfast, she moved her mouth but really couldn't find fault with me. After breakfast, I went straight to the wholesale market, bought all the supplies on the list, and then made an appointment with them for the delivery time. Although solar panels were installed in the villa, in the high temperature of 60 or 70 degrees Celsius, no one could ensure whether the solar panels could still work normally. I chose 2 silent generators and bought 100 boxes of gasoline as backup, 2 air conditioning fans and 2 small freezers, 50 boxes of portable stoves, canned natural gas, and alcohol blocks for cooking were ordered. There were also self-defense tools such as baseball bats, steel pipes, tang knives, retractable bayonets, and axes. Finally, I went to the pharmacy to buy some commonly used medicines, especially cooling water, wind, oil essence, and cooling patches, 100 boxes of each. In the afternoon, I was at home signing for the orders. The entrance to the air raid shelter was under the wooden floor at the corner of the stairs. Covered with a carpet, it was hard to find under normal circumstances. To avoid exposing the location of the air raid shelter, I asked the delivery staff to unload the supplies in the living room and then leave. All the supplies were moved into the air raid shelter by me personally. There were so many things that even when it was dark, only 1/5 of them had been moved. I looked at my phone. Naomi had sent me several messages in a row. They were all asking me why I hadn't gone back to cook, thinking that I would be scolded if I went back. I thought for a while and started editing a text. I'm working part-time in the supermarket for someone else, the family. Otherwise, when they came to their senses, I didn't know what they would do. I couldn't go back to the villa either. After all, it was daytime, and there were people coming and going. There was a risk of exposing the air raid shelter. I looked at my phone. The outdoor temperature was 56 degrees Celsius, the highest temperature recorded so far. Clusters of hot air rushed into my body desperately. Every pore all over my body seemed to be about to burst. The stinging pain became more and more intense. I walked towards the opposite unit building wearing a sun hat. It was clearly just a few dozen meters away, but it felt as if it was separated by thousands of mountains and rivers. Finally, when I stood at the entrance of the opposite unit building, I was already sweating profusely, and my whole body was completely wet. I leaned against the door frame and walked in slowly. Just 2 steps in, I felt chest tightness, shortness of breath, and my vision went dark. Cough, cough, cough. After a violent bout of breathing, the scorching air rushed in, and even my nostrils seemed to be steaming. At this critical moment, the anti-theft door next to me opened. Next, a stream of cold water poured down on my head. Whoosh, the bone-chilling cold water made me shiver, and my blurry vision gradually cleared. Thank you, you're welcome. The man nodded and quickly closed the anti-theft door. I leaned against the wall and took a while to recover. when I felt a bit more energetic, I walked towards the underground garage. The man lived next door to me. If I went back to 103 now, it would surely expose my residence. The safest way was that the basement of 103 was connected to the underground garage, and I could enter 103 from the basement. 24. Back home, I first opened the refrigerator. I took out a bottle of sparkling water that was still cool from inside and gulped down a few mouthfuls. Only then did I feel like I was alive again. Looking down, the sole of my shoe had been melted by the heat. Many people were cursing in the residence group, cursing the high-temperature doomsday for not giving people a way out, cursing the property management for their inaction, cursing that the community supermarket had been closed for so long and still hadn't reopened. Unfortunately, all the noise was in vain. I heard that 2 property management staff had died from sunstroke, and the remaining few didn't dare to run around under the big sun. The property management was virtually non-existent. In the evening, Naomi and her family got impatient and couldn't help sending me messages. "You dead girl. Where did you go to buy supplies? Where are you?" I smiled and sent her an emoji. Guess. Next, the phone rang. I pressed to hang up. They called again stubbornly, and I hung up again. After repeating this several times, Naomi sent me another message. "You dead girl, just wait. If you have the guts, don't come back for the rest of your life." If it was the previous life, I would surely have been threatened by this sentence, but now, I slightly raised the corners of my mouth and connected my phone to the surveillance of Jasper's family. In order to be able to monitor Naomi's family at all times, I spent a lot of money to buy this solar-powered miniature camera. In the afternoon, several more neighbors came to borrow supplies with thick faces, but unfortunately, the little supplies in the kitchen had been eaten and taken away by Kane and his gang. The rest wasn't even enough for the family members. How could they be willing to take them out to help others? 25. I watched as Madeline and Jackson fought each other, even to the point of bleeding, over a glass of water on the surveillance, and couldn't help but curl the corners of my mouth. In the previous life, Jasper and his wife forced me to risk my life to find water outside. They wouldn't let me go home if I didn't find water. This life, faced with their equally beloved 2 children, what kind of choices would they make? I sat in front of the surveillance, propping my chin with one hand, sucking on a popsicle. The air conditioning fan was blowing, but it still couldn't dispel the sultriness in the room. The temperature was getting higher and higher, and every day it was setting a new record for the hottest day in history. 45 degrees Celsius, 49 degrees Celsius, 53 degrees Celsius. Along with the rising temperature, the resentment of the residents in the building was also increasing. Finally, one night, someone couldn't take it anymore. I watched the light passing through the curtain and carefully opened a slit in the curtain. In the moonlight, several black figures nimbly slipped into the supermarket and carried out bag after bag of supplies. 26. After dawn, the news of the supermarket supplies being stolen quickly spread throughout the community. This incident was like flipping a switch. Facing the property management's dissuasion, everyone had no more scruples. During the pushing and shoving, one of the staff was pushed to the ground. The hot ground came into contact with the skin, and instantly a series of blisters formed. The outdoor temperature was already 50 degrees Celsius. How hot was the cement road? 60 degrees Celsius, or 70 degrees Celsius. I pursed my lips, not daring to imagine how painful it must be. My phone made a beeping sound. Opening it, I saw that Naomi was showing off their family's spoils to me. "You dead girl, you thought we couldn't do without you, right? Look at the supplies in our hands. Let me tell you, if you can't hold on outside, don't come back with a thick face." I enlarged the picture Naomi sent and saw mineral water, bread, ham, sausages. If they saved it, it might last for more than 10 days, but that was on the premise that they could protect these supplies. 27. Towards noon, there was a sudden loud bang outside. Next, glass shards came crashing down. I followed the sound and found that the glass of the resident on the top floor of the opposite unit building had been shattered by the heat. The scorching hot air instantly rushed into the room. There was no way to retreat. I felt a tightness in my heart. If this continued, as the temperature continued to rise, the windows on the lower floors would also be affected sooner or later. It seemed that I had to move to the villa area as soon as possible. I turned on the phone surveillance. The villa door was wide open, and all the supplies inside had been moved out completely. It seemed that everyone had already tacitly agreed that there was no value in searching there. In the afternoon, Naomi sent me a message again. Mabel, it's so hot now. Your father and I are really worried about you. Why don't you come back and live? Go back and live. I raised my eyebrows. These two people couldn't wait for me not to come back, so as to save wasting their supplies. Now their attitude had changed so quickly. Had something happened? I connected my phone to the surveillance of Jasper's family. The kitchen where they had shown off their supplies yesterday was now empty. Naomi was staring at the phone, Jasper was sitting on the sofa with a bruised face, and Jackson, who was lying beside him, was either dead or unconscious. The supplies, had they been snatched so quickly? A glint of interest flashed in my eyes, and I started to play the surveillance. 28. In the video, when Madeline and Jackson quarreled again over a piece of braised beef, Jasper directly slapped Madeline and then scolded Jackson. During this period, Madeline had become the bottom of the food chain in Jasper's family. The food and water she received every day were the least, so this afternoon, regardless of Naomi and her husband's resistance, she brought Cain and a few hooligans and snatched all the supplies of Jasper's family. Not even a bottle of water was left, and Jackson, as the apple of Naomi and her husband's eye, was beaten half to death. I smiled. Naomi and her husband ended up like this entirely because of their own actions. It was they who raised Madeline and Jackson to be selfish. It was also their unfair treatment that caused the resentment among the children. Naomi was still sending messages non-stop. Mabel, Mom was wrong. Come back quickly. Mom can promise that from now on, I will treat you all equally. Seeing the words, treat you all equally, I couldn't help laughing until tears came out. So she knew she was being biased, but why hadn't she thought of changing in all those years? If in the previous life, they hadn't sold me for those 2 bottles of water, I wouldn't have left them alone. I casually took a photo of the remaining supplies and clicked to send. I'm not going back. It's so hot outside. I have food and drink here, so I'd better stay here. Naomi's eyes turned red with excitement when she saw the photo of the full supplies. Jasper, look, that dead girl actually left us behind and went to live a good life by herself. As expected, she's an ungrateful white-eyed wolf. Jasper directly snatched the phone and typed tremblingly, come back with the supplies quickly, or don't blame us for not recognizing you as our daughter. Go back and continue to be a servant for your family. After sending this message, I directly turned off my phone. 29. The temperature was getting higher and higher. Affected by the extremely high temperature, the output power of the solar panels gradually decreased. Today, even the small refrigerator stopped running. I looked at the thermometer, a glaring 56 degrees Celsius. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to move to the air-raid shelter under the villa as soon as possible. Otherwise, if I got heatstroke and lost consciousness one day, it would be too late to regret. I poured the last bit of ice in the refrigerator into the bathtub and added a few buckets of drinking water. The ice melted quickly. While the water was still cool, I quickly lay down in the bathtub, feeling that every pore in my body was relaxed. Naomi still didn't give up. New messages kept popping up on my phone screen. Mabel, if you don't want to come back, then don't. Tell us where you are. It's okay if we go find you. I didn't want to pay attention to her and just pretended not to see the messages. 30. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a sudden exclamation came from the community square. I opened a slit in the curtain and happened to see Jasper chasing a woman like crazy, hitting her. Taking a closer look, it was actually Madeline. You still dare to run. If it weren't for you colluding with those hooligans, how could your brother have been killed by you? You're a jinx. I'll kill you right now. Jasper's eyes were blood red, and he pressed Madeline to the ground. A scream soon rang out at the scene. Her delicate skin stuck to the hot ground, and instantly a large piece of skin was scalded off. I gasped and took a few steps back. Naomi, who was a few seconds late, happened to see this scene when she caught up. No one at the scene dared to meddle. At a temperature of over 50 degrees Celsius, the slightest movement would make you dizzy. Short of breath, no one dared to risk their lives. Jasper left Madeline alive, but dragged her back home. I tremblingly clicked on the surveillance. Jackson was lying on the ground, his face pale and blue, having lost his breath. After a while, Jasper and his wife came back. Viewing it up close, Madeline's burns were even more severe. Almost none of the skin exposed outside was intact. Jasper took out a fruit knife from the kitchen, with a strange smile on his face. I heard that water accounts for about 70% of the human body weight. Drinking blood is equivalent to drinking water. Jasper, don't do this. Naomi tried to stop Jasper's actions but was kicked away. Get out of the way. If it weren't for you not teaching this bitch well, how could my son have died? After I deal with her, I'll teach you a lesson. 31. Hee, you must be very proud to see our family killing each other, right? Madeline stared at me with a disfigured face, expressionless. Don't worry, I'll come to find you soon. The last scene showed Madeline throwing the camera on the bookshelf out of the window. I was startled and almost dropped my phone in the water. Just then, Naomi, out of love for her daughter, picked up a chair beside her and smashed it at Jasper. With the continuous high temperature, the human body was already weak. This blow saved Madeline, but Jasper lost his breath. Now that the sun had set, the intense heat had relatively weakened. I decided to leave here under the cover of night when it was a bit later. Madeline was no longer normal. You could never predict what a madman could do. 32. At night, the opposite building suddenly became chaotic. Someone took a photo of the troublemakers and sent it to the group. It was Madeline and Kane's group. They were searching door to door for my whereabouts. It was really ridiculous. Madeline had been used by Kane once, now, in order to take revenge on me. She could still cooperate with him regardless of the past. Watching the farce in Building C, I turned and left the community. The air raid shelter was hidden under the carpet. As soon as the entrance was opened, a cool breeze rushed up. Until I lay on the bed, I still had an unreal feeling. The small night light by the bed was emitting a faint warm light. I don't know how long it had passed when my phone suddenly vibrated. The intruders have been repelled. Also, thank you for the supplies. The message was from my neighbor, the man who gave me a bottle of water when I moved into 103. I was naturally unwilling to let Kane and his gang take away the supplies in 103 that I hadn't used much, so when I left the community, I privately messaged the owner of D102 through the residence group, and gave him all the supplies. It could be regarded as repaying the kindness of that bottle of water. The man was very smart. He knew that with so many supplies, he definitely couldn't protect them alone, so he simply contacted all the survivors in Building D to fight against Kane and those hooligans together. The condition was to share the supplies. I didn't know how long the supplies worth 100,000 yuan could support the survivors in Building D, but even if it could make them hold on for one more day, it wouldn't be in vain. I was about to turn off my phone when I suddenly found that he had sent me 2 more messages. The doomsday high temperature will always end. Live well. I subconsciously glanced at the supplies covering several hundred square meters, and my heart relaxed. You too. 33. 1 day, 2 days, 2 months later, the doomsday high temperature still showed no sign of ending. Lakes dried up, streams stopped flowing, and even the groundwater was drained. Looking around, not a single trace of green could be seen. Half a month ago, the government would occasionally airdrop supplies. There were drinking water, bread, dried vegetables, etc. Every time the helicopter appeared, those survivors who would rush up like wolves smelling the smell of meat. They would even fight over a little food, and blood would splash on the spot. After each airdrop of supplies, several corpses would be left at the scene. Then, at some point, even the corpses would disappear without a trace. I sometimes wondered whether the survivors who had experienced such a cruel environment could still be called human. But I had no position to blame them, because I knew very well that if I hadn't had the great opportunity to come back again, I would have been in an even worse situation. 34. Time passed slowly. It wasn't until half of the calendar was torn off that I realized that the high temperature doomsday had actually lasted for half a year. In these 6 months, not a single drop of rain had fallen. I stared at the unmoving picture on the surveillance, in a daze. When was the last time I saw a survivor passing by? 10 days ago, a month ago, or even longer. At first, every time a survivor passed by, I was terrified, fearing that others would discover the existence of the air raid shelter. Later, seeing those emaciated and numb-looking survivors, I would feel guilty, because even though I had more supplies than I could use, I still didn't dare to help them, nor did I dare to bet on human nature with my own safety. And now, even seeing the same kind had become a luxury. I pressed the switch. the network had long since disappeared. Now the only way to receive news from the outside was through the radio on the table. After a rustling sound of electric current, a steady male voice sounded, "Dear survivors, according to the latest instructions from the country, the Doomsday High Temperature Base is about to be completed. At that time, you are welcome to join." 35. A few days later, a faded military truck drove into the community. Young men in military, green short sleeves jumped out of the car. After adjusting the sound system for a long time, it finally made a sound. "Dear survivors, we are soldiers from the 196th unit of the country, sent by the organization. We are here to pick you up and take you to the Doomsday High Temperature Base. Please bring your supplies and we will set off in half an hour." The same words were repeated many times. Soon, the survivors who heard the sound couldn't wait to rush out of the villas. I never knew that there were so many survivors in this quiet community. Great, we can finally go to the base. I knew the country would never abandon us. They cheered, hugged each other and wept, even though they were all emaciated from hunger. At this moment, there was hope in everyone's eyes. Hope. My eyes became a bit moist. Just as I was hesitating whether to walk out of the air raid shelter, a figure on the surveillance made me freeze in place. Kane, how could he be in the 196th unit? 36. I held my breath, not daring to move, afraid that the slightest sound would attract the attention of outsiders, daring to associate with a person like Kane. This 196th unit must be up to no good, but what was their purpose? Could it be for the meager supplies in the hands of the survivors? "When are we going to set off?" someone asked, unable to hide the excitement in their tone. "Wait a little longer," the leader said indifferently. "Waiting is useless. Everyone in our community is already here." I said, "Wait, can't you understand me?" The leader suddenly roared, scaring everyone. Someone sensed something was wrong and unconsciously took a few steps back. As a result, they were kicked to the ground. "Tisk, you've noticed? It's all the leader's fault. We originally wanted to pretend for a longer time." Those people who claimed to be from the 196th unit looked at each other and smiled. Then took out shiny tang knives from the car. The sharp blade fell on the survivor's neck, just like cutting a watermelon. One by one, round heads rolled on the ground, covered in dirt. The thick smell of blood spread far away. Along with it, the wanton laughter of those devils also spread far. 37. That scene left me with a serious psychological shadow, to the extent that for a long time, I would be afraid when seeing round objects, but what I didn't expect was that Kane would come back. He stumbled into the living room, covering his arm. He was obviously seriously injured. Red blood stained his entire arm. I thought somewhat sarcastically that it turned out that the blood of such a person was also red. In the extremely high temperature situation, losing too much blood, Kane's face was pale, and his breathing became rapid. I waited for another half an hour, carefully scouted the situation around the villa, and then walked out of the air raid shelter, hearing the movement. Kane opened his eyes with difficulty. When he saw the water, he was like a dying fish, struggling to swallow, trying to get the oxygen to survive. "Help, help me." His voice was weak and helpless. With a careful listen, there was even a hint of pleading. I sneered, thinking of the days and nights I was tortured by him in the previous life. Kane was a complete lunatic. He firmly believed that water could be extracted from human blood. Among them, the blood of young women was the purest. So I became his first test subject. "Where's Madeline?" Hearing this name, Kane seemed to be stimulated and coughed violently. "That bitch." I raised my eyebrows. It seemed that the cooperation between Madeline and Kane wasn't very pleasant either. What happened to her in the end? Kane stared straight at the water in my hand and asked, "If I tell you, will you give me the water?" I nodded. Kane seemed to regain some energy. "She's dead." Her whole body was severely burned, and there was no medicine. In the end, her skin rotted away. I was stunned for a few seconds. What about Naomi? She was eaten. Yeah, and it was her precious daughter who did it. I was a bit shocked. I didn't expect Madeline to be so cruel. She could even do such a thing to Naomi. Kane stared at me. "Now can you give me the water?" Of course. I unscrewed the bottle cap, took 2 steps forward, and then, in Kane's expectant eyes, poured the water in the bottle on the ground. Not a single drop was left. "Mabel, so you did recognize me," I said expressionlessly as I took out a tang knife. and successfully saw the fear on Kane's face. Be calm, all the things before were instigated by Madeline. It has nothing to do with me. What do you mean it has nothing to do with you? You were just in cahoots. I looked at the scorching sun outside and suddenly changed my mind. It wasn't worth getting my hands dirty for a scumbag like Kane, although Kane wasn't tall. He was still a man. It took me a lot of effort to drag him from the villa to the outside. Mabel, you bitch. What on earth are you going to do? I'll kill you. Get away from me. Don't touch me. At a temperature of over 50 degrees Celsius, an ordinary person could barely stand it, let alone a wounded person like him. Soon, he didn't even have the strength to curse. I watched him struggling in the sun, gradually losing his breath. 38. A few more months passed, although it still didn't rain. The temperature had dropped below 50 degrees Celsius. This was a good sign. As long as the temperature continued to drop, one day life would return to normal as before. During this period, several rescue teams passed by, and they could take survivors to the high-temperature doomsday base. But I chose to continue living in the air raid shelter. First of all, I didn't lack supplies. Secondly, the air raid shelter was cool, and I didn't have to fear the high-temperature doomsday at all. My life was much more comfortable than that in the base. The only drawback was that it was a bit boring. I planted some vegetables on the second floor of the villa, and they grew lushly. There were also corns, which had started to tassel. This was probably the only advantage of the high-temperature doomsday. As long as there was enough water, the growth cycle of crops was much shorter. I used the tap water stocked before the doomsday. There were a total of 100 water storage barrels. It couldn't be used for drinking anymore, but it wasn't a waste to use it for growing vegetables. 39. The corn was ripe. I specially picked the tenderest one. Just as I was hesitating whether to roast it or boil it, an exciting piece of news came from the radio. Just half an hour ago, after a year, thick clouds rarely appeared over City Z. The local government immediately carried out artificial rainfall. Bean-sized raindrops lasted for half an hour, greatly alleviating the drought situation in the local area. With the gradual decrease in temperature, good news of rainfall came from all over the country. The temperature in most areas had stabilized below 35 degrees Celsius, and everything was slowly returning to the way it was before the doomsday. Epilogue. After the high-temperature doomsday ended, the survivor bases across the country began to disband, and people started to return to their hometowns to participate in the reconstruction. One day, I received a call from the property management of the original community. Hello, is this Miss Mabel? Yes, well, the unit building in the community was severely damaged during the high-temperature doomsday and needs to be rebuilt. Your adoptive parents had a property in our community. And you are the only heir. May I ask when you are available to negotiate the follow-up compensation issues? I pondered for a long time. To be honest, I wasn't short of money. After all, the money I had deposited in the National Bank was still there, and I also had several million worth of gold bars in my hand. Furthermore, I really didn't want to have any more connections with that family. I choose to give up the inheritance. As for how to deal with the follow-up issues, you can handle them. There's no need to notify me. After hanging up the phone, I looked at the crowded supermarket and slightly hooked the corners of my mouth. The high-temperature doomsday had ended, and my life was just beginning.